Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto neglected by family and beaten by family part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It was a beautiful day in Konoha 12 years after the Kyuubi attack, and at the Namikaze household we find a tall spiky blonde-haired male standing next to a red-headed woman looking fondly at their daughter Narumi, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. It didn't even cross their mind when Naruto walked in the door with scratches and bruises forming all over his arms and face. His black shirt was torn and his face carefully neutral. No one needed to know what he was thinking. Seeing his sister and parents celebrating her birthday with a large cake and an even larger pot of what smelled like ramen behind them, he didn't even feel jealous anymore. Narumi was smiling at her parents while opening the presents next to the cake. She didn't even notice her brother staring at her back. Just like her parents, she didn't notice him. The door was well maintained, so when Minato, the father, came back from the Hokage's office, he didn't make any noise opening the door to the house. Of course, it was to Naruto's benefit as well. After walking home from the beatings and just wandering around the village, sometimes staying away from his family, or just staying outside to explore the village. Now all he had to do was get to his room and fall asleep after locking the door. Of course, couldn't have his parents, or his sister to wander in his room and wonder why he had all these books and scrolls after all. Walking up the stairs, he only heard what he needed to. "Happy birthday, Narumi," coming from both of her parents. They might have been twins or he just might have been adopted. He didn't know. Either way, it was best to keep quiet around them. He had read enough books and scrolls and heard enough times from the civilians to know why everyone hated him. Sure, he might have been the Kyuubi or the one that contains the monster. That would surely warrant enough hate from the civilians. There was only one problem. He didn't have a seal on him. He had checked after researching for a week straight. When he was 6, he had found the incident about the Kyuubi and read enough about sealing to figure out why the civilians kept calling him demon or demon spawn. The clans didn't though. The Uchiha, well, they participated in most of the beatings. He knew because he could see the read eyes with the commas in the eyes of his attackers to know they had participated. He had read about all the clans in the library, wanting to know more about the styles and the people of the village he lived in. Now, even though his parents and classmates mostly ignored him, he preferred it that way. He flourished when he was by himself to study and gain what he called important knowledge, strength, friends when he could get some anyway. Finally, he was upstairs away from the noise and into the quiet. He liked the quiet. It was nice. It didn't do anything to him. It assured him there was no one nearby. Now he should focus on his studies. Sighing, he went to his desk and brought out his homework, a history write-up on the Hokages. Well, better get started then. That in mind, he started writing his history paper on the Hokages. Waking up, he got up and got ready for the academy. After putting on his clothes, he stood in front of his mirror looking himself over. He wore dark A&BU styled pants with pouches in them to hold things for him, dark blue and black shirt, shinobi sandals, and finally his backpack that had his homework in it with some other stuff he might need. Half an hour later, he stood in the door, and like his footsteps and very presence in his house said, "I'm leaving." No one replied, but he always said it, waiting for the day someone replied. With his pack in hand, he walked quietly to the academy. His sister would wake up later, as it was always extremely early when he left. Narumi was having a good morning so far. She had woken up early and was finally going to turn in that ridiculous paper that her sensei at the academy had assigned for homework over the weekend. She had a good breakfast and was already ready for the academy. She was just waiting for the "I'm leaving." A soft voice said by the door. She had barely heard it, but had only heard it because she had enhanced her senses with chakra. Smiling in triumph, she ran out of the kitchen and to the door, hoping to at least say goodbye to her brother this time. She had been waking up progressively earlier for the past 2 weeks, trying to get ready by the time her brother was. It was 6:30, for crying out loud. Who in their right minds leaves the house at 6:30 for the academy? It started at 8 o'clock. It barely took 10 minutes to get there, walking leisurely without a care in the world, looking at all the distractions. Ugh, better go find him, in case he gets into trouble again. Oh yes, she knew the civilians beat him. She had no idea what for though. She didn't want to ask her parents because she feared what would happen to Naruto when they found out. She didn't want them to beat him too. She heard the names and the insults. The one thing she didn't know, and it irritated the hell out of her, was how in the world her brother just stood up, dusted himself off, and started walking again to wherever he was going. She had no idea how he did it. She would see the bruises and cuts at school, but no one ever asked, and some of the teachers even smiled a little at seeing her brother like this. Not that he would care. In fact, he would just stare at the teacher until the lesson got started again. No one knew how he had such a high pain tolerance. He just did. He was smart too. She had seen some of the homework he had done and was swirly-eyed by the halfway point in it. Too many big words and too many details. Her childlike mind couldn't understand it. But that wasn't important right now. She had to see her brother. Running to the door, it was already closed. Opening the door, she smiled in triumph at catching her brother until where did he go? He just said he was leaving. He was nowhere to be seen. She just stared at her front yard, demanding it to tell her where her brother was. Unfortunately, a 12-year-old stare wasn't potent enough to demand anything from nature. It seemed as the lawn just sat there with the grass swaying occasionally. Dropping her shoulders in resignation, she trudged back inside to wait for her parents at the table. So she did the only thing she knew how to as a 12-year-old, to wait. She sat at the table listing ways her brother could have disappeared that fast. Each suggestion was more far-fetched than the last, with one including him knowing the Horatian her father had invented. The last was that alien monsters had beamed him on their ship and he was being held prisoner as they interrogated him. Oh, if only she knew the truth. "Hey sweetie, what are you doing up so early?" Her mother had appeared in the kitchen with her father just behind her. Not even turning around, she asked them, "Does Oniai-chan know the Horatian?" Shocked at their daughter asking this, they asked the only thing that came to mind: "Why do you ask?" Anything more complicated than that just didn't make it to their minds. "So, I got up early enough to hear Oniai-chan leave this morning and immediately went to the door to say goodbye like a good sister. Well, as soon as I opened the door, he was gone. No blonde hair turning the corner, no sound except the wind, nothing. How in the world did he manage to get across the lawn, out of sight by the time I got to the door? I ran there, for crying out loud. How does he keep disappearing?" By the time she had finished, her pen had broken, making her blink, dig into her backpack and grab another one to finish her by now beyond reality list, some of which were quite in depth. Her parents behind her were quite confused at this. How did he get out of sight so quickly? They had trained her quite well, so when she says immediately go to the door, they knew she had gotten there in less than 5 seconds, which means he must have jumped, or something. Kushina, getting her mind together faster than her husband, responded with, "Why not ask him at school?" It was a good suggestion in her mind. They were siblings, they should stick together, especially at school. The reply wasn't as encouraging. "Because when I do find him, he is just in time for class and only then do I see him with all the BR. Never mind, I'll just ask him at lunch," she said, hurriedly grabbing her stuff and then leaving the kitchen to the door, trying to escape whatever they would ask what she was about to say. She succeeded apparently, as she got to the door before they said anything and left to go. "Now where should I go? I still have an hour until the academy starts. Now I'll just go to the library and start reading something interesting. I wonder if they have anything that would trap my brother?" Still deep in thought on traps to use on her brother, she completely missed entering the library and started walking to a table, and then regretted not paying any attention due to her not knowing exactly where she was. Of course, the silver lining to this was that across from her was her longtime friend Hinata Hyuga. "Hey, wait a minute. Hinata-chan, I have a favor to ask," Narumi says with the most serious face a 12-year-old can have. Being the shy girl she is, Hinata stutters back, Hi, and Narumi-san? Can you use your Byakugan to find my brother? He disappeared this morning." With Hinata having a huge crush on her friend's sister, she did the only thing that came to mind. "Byakugan!" she shouted out, pumping a lot of chakra into her eyes, looking for the elusive blonde. Something must have happened. He never disappears and Narumi never asked before, so something must have happened. She was on a mission now. To find her crush. She couldn't fail. Well, she did find him. Not where she expected, but she did find him. "Ano and Narumi-san, he's alright there," she stuttered out with a full-on blush at seeing her crush. She had pumped a lot of chakra in her eyes so she could see every tiny detail, every single detail. Thump goes the Hyuga. Narumi was now gobsmacked. How had she not noticed her brother sitting not 10 feet away from her, and Hinata, wait, where did she go? She had just turned her back and now she was gone. Why did this keep happening to her? Well, oh well. She could now talk to her brother. "Oniai-chan," she said loudly, not even trying to keep her voice down in the library. Well, that was until he turned around, looked full on at her, and brought a finger up to his lips and hushed her. Man, did that bring her back to reality. With everyone in the library looking at her weirdly and even her brother hushing her, she quickly was brought back to earth. "Sorry," she whispers to the audience. Now that everyone's head was turned away, she looked back to her brother. He was just sitting there with books all around him. Reading the titles she could see: Advanced Chakra Theory, Yin and Yang, Advanced Guide to Journeyman Sealing, Elemental Composition, The Big Five, Medical Techniques, How to Save a Life, and many more under the books. Now she was confused. Does he leave so early every morning to go study? Oniai-chan is a nerd. She shouted out again. All previous mentions of being quiet fled her mind at the proclamation. Naruto was completely and utterly unemotional when he heard his sister and her friend behind him. Ugh, who knows how long this will last until I get to go back to my reading. Most would be a bit surprised at seeing someone who avoided studying in every possible way at the library. Of course, right now he couldn't care less. Processing everything that happened, like when a teacher walked by and tripped, knocking his books over, Of course, he didn't really care at the moment. There was no reason to get mad at someone knocking some books over when they weren't being read, completely useless. So he just picked them up and placed them in order of advancement, and subject again, with beginner on bottom and advanced on top. Now, with everyone staring at him again, he didn't need that. No, now to hush his sister again. The nerd comment gained her no favor points with him. So he just hushed her again. And watched patiently as her shoulders dropped and realization struck her again at where she was again. Huh? Why? How? Were the only things going through Narumi's head as she processed what just happened. She found her brother, got shushed by him, called him a nerd after seeing the books he was reading, and then got shushed again, and finally realized where she was by the tap on her shoulder. Turning around, she turned into the hazel eyes of the librarian staring at her. Uzumaki Namikaze-san, please leave Naruto-san alone until he is done. You have disturbed him and everyone else enough for now, she said, looking straight into the scared girl's eyes. She had no idea why the poor girl was terrified of her. She was just a normal librarian. The fact that she had told and shoved the ANBU out of the library just because of his noisy behavior, shadow guards her derriere, might have something to do with it, but that was not her problem. She had been a high-level jounin before retiring to be the librarian she was. Didn't really care about much, just helping people find what they were looking for in books or in her library archives of scrolls. When she had met Naruto, the demon spawn of Konoha, she had looked at him, blinked, and then moved on. Of course, that was right before he had asked for tips in finding books and annotating things after copying scrolls for his own personal use. Nice boy, very polite, good help in organizing things when she needs help. Yes, ma'am, Narumi said quickly and quietly, trying to get away from the scary librarian. And please take your friend with you. I do not like her drooling near the books. Yes, ma'am, Narumi replied, not even caring about being ordered around. That woman was scary. Looking over the table at her friend, she found her on the floor with a dazed and happy look. Why did she look like that? Never mind, just got to get her and myself out of here. With that in mind, she picked her up and carried her out of the library. Of course, it was now 7:30 from wandering around the village and the library happenings, so to the academy. Besides, it was graduations today. Finally going to become a fully fledged shinobi. Thank you again, Naruto-san, for your help in returning the books, but shouldn't you get going? It's almost time for the academy to start, the librarian said. Thank you, Teru-san, I'll leave now. Thank you again for allowing me in the library. Naruto replied to the nice librarian. She was nothing but helpful to Naruto in finding books and scrolls on what he wanted to study. Walking out of the library, he hefted his backpack up with the new scrolls and notes on the older scrolls and books he had just finished. Walking to the academy, most would wonder how he got along so well with everything, considering his family doesn't pay any attention to him and the villagers hate him and most shinobi didn't like him as well. Well, he would keep a straight face and reply and say, it doesn't matter if they hate me, it doesn't do anyone any good. Even if I was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, they wouldn't have much reason to hate me, and even then most of it would be toward the Biju and not me. It would do me no favors if I remained visible to everyone. I would rather be a ghost than be up on display for everyone to see. By now he had managed to make it to the academy, where he would sit in his normal spot, the back. Didn't want anyone behind him, he would rather be behind everyone, and considering no one paid him any attention, it worked rather well. Now all he had to deal with was Oanai-chan. Why does this happen every day? Good morning, Narumi-san, he said as she sat next to him in the back, as he completely ignored the pout/frown on her face. Shut up and sit down, came the normal shout from their sensei, Irika Yumino. Now, as you all know, today is the academy exam to become fine shinobi. It is a 3-part test, a written exam, a projectile exam, and lastly the ninjutsu portion. No talking as I passed the tests out. Walking through the desks, he passed the test out, looking at everyone's faces to see them go through the last obstacle in their way to becoming a true shinobi. Well, the last obstacle that they knew about, at least. Walking back to the front, he was almost there until, excuse me, sensei. The quietest student he had ever had spoke up. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was a practical ghost. He rarely spoke, and when he did, it was always a whisper. Rarely participated in activities, got mediocre scores on tests even though his intelligence was much higher than that. He had seen the homework, he knew Naruto's intelligence level. Yes, Naruto-san. What could he want now? During the last day of class, what is so important? What do I about the genjutsu on my test? What? That was not what he expected. I can answer these questions, but none of them were covered in the 3 years of academy. What would you like me to do about it? Behind Irika, a blue-haired man named Mizuki widened his eyes a fraction. How could he have detected it? He's not even a shinobi yet. Irika, not privy to his assistant's thoughts, walked up to the back and looked at the test. What is the proper way to catch a thrown shuriken? What are the symptoms of chakra radiation and how do you treat it? What are 2 jutsu used for defense, and what are the hand signs? The test went on further on way more advanced things that they hadn't covered. So why? Genjutsu? Kai, he said, pulsing his chakra and dispelling the genjutsu on the test. Showing the real test. Thank you, sensei, the boy said before looking over the real test. It was ridiculously easy. He breezed through it no problem. He might have overstudied a bit. Just a bit. Okay, last question. What are the two components of chakra? Okay, I really overstudied. Well, might as well put my all into it. With that thought, he wrote down all he knew and all he theorized about chakra itself, including manifestations of killing intent, ki, the presence used on newer shinobi to bring them into line, and the spiritual effect of chakra has in the use of jutsu. By the end of the bell, he had written over 2 pages on the subject, and looking over it, his sweat dropped at the entirety of it. Giving it to his instructor, he carefully maintained his neutrality, and moved outside to the practice range before they could yell at him for overcomplicating answers to the problem. Knowing his rival in knowledge, Sakura Haruno glaring daggers at his back, he shrugged it off. She had never liked him. Her parents told her to bully him at school, and she tried, but him being as neutral as he is, it didn't really work except for making her look like a fool. Obviously, she hadn't met the librarian yet. Though he had a sneaking suspicion that Sakura wouldn't go near the library from the horror stories about the librarian floating around Konoha. Some were very detailed about what she did to people who were loud and rambunctious in her library. Outside, Naruto saw the training posts lined up and their instructors waiting with clipboards and boxes of shuriken. Next was the projectile portion of the test. Waiting in line, he stood next to Shino Aburame. A respectable boy, quiet, intelligent, and logical, never overestimating anyone no matter how low his or her scores were, analyzing everything. A nod passed between them both. They had a mutual acquaintance of the librarian, Shino interested in bugs and insects, while Naruto focused mostly on the shinobi arts. After everyone was in line, Iruka spoke up. Alright, when we call up your name, come forward and throw 20 shuriken and 10 kunai at the posts for your score. You have to get at least 10 shuriken and 5 kunai to pass. Still standing next to Shino, Naruto whispered over to him, Are you going to hold back at all? All he received was a look from the boy that clearly said, What makes you think I'm holding back? Chuckling at the poor teachers, he readied himself for whenever. Aburame Shino. He went forward and carefully shot out 12 shuriken and 7 kunai. Passing lowly but still passing. Of course, the glint in the boy's glasses were enough to say he was holding back a lot, not that the teachers knew. Okay, December 20th and July 10th, good job, needs a little work but acceptable. Next to Kimichi Choji. A rather plump boy walked forward and threw the weapons at the post, getting a solid 16 shuriken and 8 kunai. 16, 20, and 8 out of 10, nice job, Choji. Next up, Naruto stopped listening and started thinking up who would be put in whose squad if they passed. The villages needed a good tracking or capture team to chase down criminals, so a Hyugas to find and incapacitate, and an Inuzuka for their sense of smell. Also, their Niken partners were very useful in the battlefield, and an Aburame could be used for a larger area, and their insects to drain an opponent's chakra for easy capture. The next Ino Shikacho combo was a for sure. Their parents always did things together, and always brought their kids along for the ride. Of course, Ino Yamanaka, a blonde-haired girl with a large bang covering one eye, was a fangirl, but that could be fixed with training. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Hearing his name, he walked up and thought about how many to hit, so he did what he thought was passing. Perfect score. Iruka was shocked. This had never happened before. Was he holding back beforehand? Last up was the pretty boy Sasuke Uchiha, who thought everyone should bow down to him because of his clan name alone. Sasuke Uchiha. Score 19 out of 20 and 10 out of 10. Well done, Sasuke. And no, I did not go in alphabetical order. No, I don't care about it either. Okay, lastly, the ninjutsu portion. Before we go inside, does anyone have any ninjutsu to show off before the test for extra credit? Iruka called out to everyone listening. Of course, Sasuke, being an Uchiha, did the extra credit and breathed out a fireball, much to the fangirl's amazement. If the U's and AHS heard were any indication. Thinking about it, it couldn't hurt to have a bit of extra credit, so Naruto raised his hand and was called forward. Which to choose, which to choose. Alright then, Futon, great breakthrough. He called out just barely above a whisper, causing a great wind to blow the targets away from him. Nice job, Naruto-san, you get extra credit. Is that all? All in all, the clan heirs had jutsu from their clan, and Narumi had the chakra chains from her mother. After writing the extra credit down, Iruka brought the kids inside and started working on the Academy 3 tests. The list was reverse what came from the projectile test, so Naruto went second after Sasuke came out with a smug smirk with his forehead protector on his forehead shown off for all to see. Naruto went in next. In the room, Iruka and Mizuki were waiting for him in chairs with an extra chair 10 feet away. He walked and stood in front of them. Okay, Naruto-san, please make 3 bunshin, Iruka said. Naruto made a hand sign and poof, smoke appeared around him with his 3 clones behind him in a triangle. Well done, Naruto-san, only 1 hand sign. Writing something down on his clipboard, he told Naruto, "Okay, now please transform into someone." Thinking for a minute, he nodded to himself, focused his chakra, and poof, smoke appeared around him and outstepped the librarian in all her terrifying presence. For a minute no one moved. The teachers knew it was a transformation, but it was detailed to the extreme, including her eyes that bore into the soul of the fool who would meet her gaze. Alright Naruto-san, please drop the transformation. Poof, thank you Naruto-san. Alright, lastly please replace yourself with the chair over there. Naruto merely looked at the chair and replaced himself with it. Very well done Naruto-san, no hand signs, you passed. Take a forehead protector, you deserve it. When you walk out please send Narumi-san in please. Irika was excited. He knew that the boy was holding back. And this is all the proof that he needed to rub it in the staff's faces. Are we allowed to leave when we walk out? Naruto asked in his normal whisper. I suppose just make sure to come back in 2 days for team placements. Thank you, sensei. Naruto said with his hand on the door. Opening the door, he saw the others get more confident. After all, if the loser in just about everything could do it, then it should be a breeze. They hadn't paid much attention to the last day. It was probably luck. Naruto had kept himself low on the grading scale as possible without failing, so as to get people to underestimate people. He had understood everything. No matter how many people tried to kick him out of class, if they did, he would just walk to the library, and the librarian would not be pleased about it. Those teachers never kicked him out again. The librarian was not to be crossed. She was a scary lady to those who she didn't like. And the academy teachers were on that list, except Irika. She saw his professionalism and had no dislike for the man. Walking out, he found his sister talking to her friend Hinata and walked up to her and told her that she was next. Okay Oniai-chan, I'll see you in a bit after I get my forehead protector. With that she walked into the room with the instructors, and Naruto walked out of the academy to a training grounds. He had something to test out. It was dinner time in the Uzumaki Namake's household, and Narumi, Kushina, and Minato were eating silently while Naruto had already finished and washed his dishes. So how was the academy this morning? How were the tests? Minato asked Narumi. They were pretty easy, but Oniai-chan got his easily, I think. I know that he did a lot on the writing portion though. The way Sakura-san was glaring at him meant he probably kicked her, but on the written portion. Oh? I've seen her grades and they are nearly perfect. You're saying your brother could beat her in academics? Minato asked with an eyebrow raised. He never saw any homework from his son. It was disturbing. He knew it was getting done, he just had no clue how. He had also seen his son's report card. It was horrific. How did he match up to the genius of the class who had near-perfect grades? He could destroy her in academics. Every time she gives answers it is word for word what the book says, but when he gives answers it is the definition plus his understanding of the material. It has confused the teachers on occasion as well. Sakura-san would not be able to match up to him in anything. Plus she is a weakling. She was proud of her Oniai-chan. Even if she is more distant than she would have liked. They were family. They should be close. Too bad her parents hardly saw him and never paid him any attention. That brought up a question though. Why did they not pay him any attention? Deciding to voice her question, she looked at her parents. Ka-san too-san? Yes, sweetie? Her mother responded. Why don't you pay Oniai-chan any attention when you see him? Now that stumped her parents. Why didn't they? They were his parents, and yet they had to focus on her because she was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. She couldn't lack any training. They were worried that if they focused on him they might miss something that could lead to it getting out and causing untold amounts of destruction. Of course they had their reason. Just have to figure out how to tell their daughter that. Your brother likes his space, sweetie, we are just respecting that. Kushina said, twisting what he said concerning his room organization to this conversation. Even if she knew it was for the better to focus on their daughter, Kushina never saw it like that, and would have gladly focused on him, but now that it was so far into their lives it hurt her to follow Minato's advice on him. It only got harder now that he was nearly emotionless, just being a shadow around the house, not causing any ruckus or disturbance. Surely he was a lonely child. But now that they graduated they needed to train him anyways, so they would include him in training sessions since that was what Minato had promised her. But since you both have graduated, I promise we will start training you both in the Uzumaki and Namake styles of taijutsu. How does that sound? Kushina told her daughter in hopes of getting a positive answer. Really? Yes. Oniai-chan. She yelled, running out of the room towards the upstairs and his room. Upstairs in his room, Naruto was continuing his reading on the separate parts of chakra and writing down annotations for help later when he looked over it again. After coming back from dinner he had not done much and was finishing his journeyman ceiling scroll up. He kept it neat though. He had annotations in a separate scroll labeled journeyman ceiling scroll annotations. Finishing up, he was just about to reach for his chakra theory scroll until he heard a knock at his door. Now who could that be? No one ever knocks on my door. The only person who does is usually Kushina-san, and that is when we have guests who want to see me for some reason. Well, let's see who it is. Standing up, he walked over to his door, and unlocked the seal, and opened the door to see Narumi standing there looking like she had won the grand prize at a festival. Oni-chan, guess what? You get to start training with me. We can train together now. Come on, let's go talk to Ka-san and Tu-san about it, she exclaimed, making him confused about why he was getting trained finally after they graduated. She then grabbed his hand and almost dragged him downstairs to their parents. Downstairs, Minato and Kushina were arguing about what they had just offered their daughter. How are we going to notice if something goes wrong with the seal if Naruto is there, Kushina? He argued. If something was going to go wrong, it would have proven itself by now. It's been 12 years, Minato. The seal is sturdy. We both worked on it. Nothing is getting out of that seal. Act fine, Kushina, they are almost down anyway, so we had better get a schedule planned out. Just as he had said that, Narumi came running down, and Narumi was beaming with joy while Naruto only looked confused. Why was he confused? Narumi-san, could you step in the hallway for a moment, please? Naruto asked, surprising her a little, but she nodded and walked into the hallway for him. Surprising the adults, Naruto merely whispered and put his palm on the ground while a small burst of chakra was felt. He was checking for something. But what could he be checking for? This was the Uzumaki Namikaze's household. Nothing would hold here except what they allowed. Cocking his head to the side, he then flipped through 10 hand signs and sealed the room up to talk to his parents. Why are you just now starting to train me? Now that was not what they expected. For one, their relatively unknown son just placed a strong silent seal on the room. Since when did he know advanced Fuinjutsu? Second, why would he question learning two very powerful styles from arguably the best shinobi in the village? Minato got his mind together first instead of his wife and asked, don't you want to be trained in our styles? That's not what I'm asking. I am asking, why give me training now? After the academy, after we set ourselves in certain ways that would impede a change in routine for our shinobi lives. It doesn't make sense to me. Why pay me any attention after ignoring me for 12 years? Because Narumi asked you so she can be with her brother? Because you feel guilt for leaving me alone all the time? What is it? Now that was certainly not anything near what they expected. He may have just broken their minds with those statements because he could see a glaze over Kushina's eyes, and Minato had closed his eyes and was looking at the ground. Obviously you didn't really plan this out well, so I will return to my room. Good night, Minato-sama. Kushina-sama. I would suggest you explain why I am not training with Narumi to her. She will be disappointed with this. If you want me to leave because by some chance I was an orphan who just happened to look like you, I will move out if you want to keep focusing on Narumi-san. Although I will need a few weeks to gather funds to get an apartment. Naruto said, turning around, not seeing the crushed look in his father's eyes and the self-loathing in his mother's. Undoing the seal on the room, Naruto noticed Narumi was still in the hallway as he had asked. Narumi-san, you can come back in now. We're done in here. Sorry for taking so long. Naruto was still speaking at a whisper and had spoken quietly the entire time. They had only grown used to it. Moving out would prove a problem for him, but he could manage. If he hunted around the village, he could find meat and could very well just grow his own vegetables and fruits for himself. Those survival guides and other books the librarian had told him to read were very useful. Walking out of the room and up to his room, he didn't see Narumi's confused face when she walked into the kitchen and saw her parents looking like a child had just died or something like that. Not knowing what to do, she walked over to her parents and just hugged them until they were done, feeling sorry for themselves. I guess Oni-chan isn't training in their styles after all. She thought, darn it. Just when I almost get to spend more time with him, finally this happens. What did he say to get them like this, I wonder? Looking up, she could see her father was pulling himself together, but her mother still looked terrified of something. She wouldn't get answers tonight unless she talked to her Oni-chan, who was probably in his room. Resigning herself to comforting her mother all night, she pulled up a chair and hugged her mother, who readily replied by pulling her into her lap and hugging her back. Yup, no answers tonight, she thought while keeping a hold on her mother and trying to comfort her. It had been 2 days since that talk, and some things had changed. For one, Kushina was up and ready at 3 a.m. in an attempt to talk to her son before he left. It turned out he woke up at 4 and was ready at 5:30. She started to hold him back a bit during breakfast to talk to him more and get to know him better, which he appreciated but was still confused by. It was now the team placements, and Kushina was talking to her husband about the teams. I'm telling you, Minato, put them in the same team with Miko-chan's son, that way they will be the best and have each other to rely on. But why Kushina? Sasuke and Sakura would be better if it was that. Besides, they are needed for the reformation of Team 7, the weakest and the strongest, balancing everything out. The team should be Sasuke, Sakura and Narumi. Those are the top, middle and lowest students. Are you telling me my daughter is the lowest student in the academy who graduated? Kushina asked with ki rolling off of her in waves, scaring her husband a little. No. Narumi is not the worst, she is the middle. Sakura is the worst with the physical stats. I went over the reports yesterday and Narumi was right when she explained the difference between Sakura and Naruto. Oh, speaking of Naruto, look at this. He handed over his academy graduation paper, including the extra pages, trying to change the subject and not get the crap beaten out of him for insinuating that their daughter is the worst student. Kushina started looking over the paper and was mildly surprised at the level of thought in the answers and had to believe her daughter on the difference between him and anyone. His understanding would crush a Jounins at this point. And then she got to the last question. She started reading and by the end of the answer was in utter shock at the entirety of the answer. It had A and BU level answers in chakra theory that was only used by the people who wrote the books/scrolls on chakra theory. And it was easy to read too. Almost like he didn't want to confuse someone when he wrote it. Then again, she did say he had confused the teachers sometimes, so that might be why. Minato, how in the world did he come up with this? I have no idea. Most jounin never get that far in chakra theory, and here it is an academy student knowing it, and having his own opinion on chakra, emotion and spirit effects in jutsu. Naruto is by all means the top in academics, however. His grades do not reflect that at all. His grades pretty much say he is an idiot, yet there is proof that he isn't. There is also a note that he refused to use the academy taijutsu katas. I don't know what to make of any of it. His grades say he is stupid, yet his work says he is a genius. We know he is good at Fuinjutsu because of the silencing seal a couple days ago. He knows wind-style techniques from somewhere. We need to ask him where he learned everything. If we had two more like him, we could have a team of geniuses, and yet I doubt anyone could match him in knowledge or jutsu. If his theory goes for anything, then he probably knows a lot of jutsu that uses them, he added, seeing his wife's confusion and knowledge of jutsus. True, why don't we ask him after the team selection? His wife suggested. Alright, now just where to put him? I have an idea. Kushina says with a smirk on her face, knowing her son would like it. I have a bad feeling about this. Minato thought before she explained her idea. Iruka was now speaking in front of his now graduated class of shinobi and was giving them some last-minute words. Be careful, for I know just how brutal this world is. If you need help, it's okay to ask others for advice. I know you all will make me proud as a sensei in your journey to greatness. Good luck on your own adventure in the world, fellow shinobi. He said, getting a cheer from the students about finally being shinobi. Now for team arrangements. Team Naruto zoned out by now and was focused on his new scroll the librarian had given him. It was focused on wind, nature, chakra, and theory and how it worked. He was reading for a few minutes until he heard familiar names: 7, Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze, Sakura Haruno Thump Goes Narumi, and Sasuke Uchiha. Q Fangirl Screech, and another thump from Narumi. Team 8, Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Kiba Inuzuka. Team 9 is still in use, so Team 10 is Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara, and Choji Akimichi. At this point Naruto was getting confused. There had never been a one-man cell before, and he was all that was left for the teams. Also at this point a Chunin that Naruto had seen at the library walked into the room and handed Iruka a note. Iruka looked at the note, and quietly argued with the Chunin before resigning and speaking loud enough to be heard. And lastly, Team 11 is a one-man cell of Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. That caused many raised eyebrows and loud responses from the fangirls of the class, arguing why Naruto was a baka and would need a team while their Sasuke-kun wouldn't. Quiet. This was a decision made by the Hokage. If you want to change it, take it up with him, not me. Iruka-sensei? The person in question asked. Yes, Naruto-san? Does my cell have a sensei, or can I go speak with the Hokage now to see why he wanted this? You do have a sensei. In fact, you have multiple senseis right now. But you should go see the Hokage. It would probably clear up any confusion you have. And I have too, but I probably won't get to know. He thought to himself. Naruto then nodded to Iruka and left to the academy to see the Hokage. After naming the teams, a few jounin started walking in and grabbing teams. Soon only Team 7 was left, with Narumi taking a page out of her brother's book and reading a scroll to ignore her teammates. Though after thinking about why they were left alone, she put the scroll away and tried to get a conversation started between them. So who do you think our sensei will be, Sakura? Narumi said, trying to be civil to the fangirl and brooder. I don't know, Narumi, I just hope that whoever it is, they get here soon. I don't want to wait any longer. Sasuke-san, any ideas? HN. Two very different reactions happened to this. One, Narumi just stared at the male, completely ruining her attempts at conversation with a single syllable. She was also a little peeved. 2, Sakura swooned at her crush's behavior and coolness. Not even a second after that, the door opened to show a head sticking with gravity-defying silver hair and a mask on, with his forehead protector covering his left eye. His first glance at his team is Narumi looking irritated at a brooder, while the pink-haired one has hearts in her eyes looking at the brooder. And the brooder was just brooding. Well, my first impression of you is, I hate you already. Meet me on the roof. With that, he vanished in a swirl of leaves. All three trudged up to the roof. On the roof, we find the spiky-haired Jounin and the 3 Genins of Team 7 all sitting in a row. Now that we are all here, why don't we start introducing ourselves with likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams, etc. I'll start. My name is Hitaki Kakashi. I have some likes and some dislikes, and I have hobbies that you don't need to know about yet, and as for my dream, never really thought about it, he said, finishing with his eyelid turning into an upside-down U that Narumi could only think was the masked man's way of smiling. Though her teammates were thinking something else, she was thinking, is that a smile for a masked man? And they were thinking he only told us his name. Now why don't you introduce yourself, Pinky? Bristled a little bit, Sakura started to introduce herself. My name is Sakura Harino. My likes are who I like is, stares at Sasuke giggling. My dreams are, stares at Sasuke giggling. My hobbies are, stares at Sasuke giggling. My dislikes are Ino Pig and Naruto Baka. She said, finishing with a huff while Narumi frowns at the girl but kept her silence. Her brother would show just where her place is. Okay, next brooder. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I have many dislikes and few if any likes. I don't have a dream to chase but 2 ambitions that I will complete. I have no hobbies other than getting stronger to obtain my ambition. 3 different reactions happened to the Uchiha's proclamation. 1. Narumi just sat there with a forced smile thinking of getting her dad to put her on a different squad. 2. Sakura was again swooning at the coolness of her crush. And 3 was Kakashi's blank face taking in the revenge-driven brooder. Getting over the sheer awkwardness, Kakashi motioned for Narumi to take her turn. My name is Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze. I like training and spending time with my Oni-chan when I can. I dislike idiots that can't tell the difference between the past and the present, people who are jerks to people who haven't done anything wrong. My hobbies are training and spending time with my friends and family. My dream for now is, well, it's not important right now, she said, as her dream was a little selfish, and she didn't want her new team to think her selfish for a stupid reason. Alright, well, now that that's done, why don't you all meet me at Training Ground 7 at 6 a.m. for the Genin exam tomorrow. And before anyone could say anything about the academy exam, he poofed away. Narumi, do you know what he meant by the Genin exam? We just took one, didn't we? Sakura asked after he had left. No idea. Why did you ask me? Narumi asked, a little peeved at the so-called academic genius asking her. Your dad is the Hokage, right? Shouldn't you know this stuff already? How would I know if he doesn't tell me? This is the first time I have heard of it, Narumi said, and before Sakura could argue left the roof in search of her brother. So then what am I, Hokage-sama? Naruto asked the man sitting in front of him. If I am not reserves, what am I? Considering Iruka said I have multiple senseis, and I can only imagine you giving me to the other rookie senseis as backup on missions to earn mission credit on my file. If that isn't it, what I am, then what am I, Hokage-sama? Naruto whispered as he looked at the blonde man in front of him and red-headed woman smiling at him next to the blonde man. Yes, that is the gist of it. You will mostly be training yourself to fit in any situation, but there is one technique I want you to learn first, the Hokage replied, smiling at his son. Very well. What technique is it? Naruto whispered with, as always, the quiet whisper-like voice. The shadow clone technique. It will help with the time it takes to learn things and give you more use to bond with teammates. To get to know them more and to plan things farther in advance, if you get that far with them, that is. The Hokage added, seeing his son's lost expression. Naruto nodded, then looked to him and asked, when may I get started on training? Now, Kushina-chan, could you please go with Naruto to show him the shadow clone? The Hokage asked as Naruto saw why she was here. Sure, Sochi-chan, we are going to Training Ground 11. Do you know the body flicker? She asked. Receiving a nod, they both disappeared in a whirl of leaves. Bold move, giving him the shadow clone. I'm not sure whether to congratulate you on finally noticing him, or congratulate you on sticking one to the council's plea for him to be held back, a voice said from the right window. Was it that bad, sensei? Minato asked his sensei. You want the truth or a comforting lie? The toad sage asked. The truth, he said, knowing he might get chewed out worse than what his son did. You abandoned him to the village who hates him. I'm surprised that he's not raging and hating everyone in the village. If he went rogue, I would be obliged to hunt him down, but he would have every reason to go rogue. No amount of loyalty could keep someone in a village full of people who hate him and hates everything he does. And there were moments I thought I would have to as well. Thankfully, he met the librarian and is now probably going to be one of the strongest shinobi in Konoha. But I have no idea if he will ever call back his emotions, though. He pushed them to the side, knowing that if he kept them, he wouldn't be able to not hate people. And the sad thing is, I didn't notice it. The librarian pointed it out to me. She pointed out a lot about him. If I didn't know better, I would say Itachi would have a serious competitor for his potential. Jiraiya said to Minato, getting him to lower his head in shame. We couldn't leave Narumi alone, Jiraiya. She is the Kyuubi's container. We had to watch to make sure it couldn't get out. And in doing so, you left your son to deal with hatred, Jiraiya said, getting a flinch out of the Hokage. Enough about that for now. What I want to know is, how does this librarian know so much about him when he is almost a ghost everywhere else? Minato asked, revealing a large curiosity of his. The librarian is a 40-year-old woman known for her intelligence and categorization. When the war ended, she built a new library with 2 sections in it. The first section has many stories and novels used mainly by civilians. The second section is categorized into branches, with nin, gen, tairyu, ken, and other jutsu used by shinobi, with scrolls meant for control purposes, and scrolls on fuinjutsu as well. That doesn't exactly tell me how she knows my son so well, sensei. Isn't that what you should ask him yourself? You already left him alone for 12 years. How much longer is he going to have to wait? Jiraiya said, looking at his former student seriously. If you're so worried about him, why don't you ask him yourself? Minato asked, a little irked by his sensei. I tried. Let's just say it didn't work, Jiraiya said a little sheepishly, remembering what happened. Flashback. Naruto was in his room when a knock came from the door. Walking over, he opened it to see a big man with a large white mane of hair falling down his back. Hey Naruto, what are you doing all by yourself? The big man asked. I apologize, but I don't know who you are, Naruto whispered, closing his door. But it was stopped by the big man's hand in the doorway. Hold on there, Naruto, I am Jiraiya, the epitome of manliness. I fall for no woman's wiles. When you're me, you only need to flash that sexiness to have women fall at your feet. The great toad sage of Mount Maiboku. Jiraiya, he said, introducing himself to the young boy. The sad thing was that Naruto had no reaction to his introduction, only looking with an emotionless face, causing him to cry on the inside. Being the manly man he was, he moved towards the door again, only to be stopped by the boy, who asked one question in response. Why should I let you in my room when I just met you, Jiraiya-sama? He asked. Jiraiya stopped. Most kids would be shocked into seeing a Sannin and let them do pretty much whatever. This kid, however, was not impressed. I just want to know what you're doing, kid, he said, getting a simple, one-word answer before getting the door closed in his face. Homework. Flashback end. When was this? Minato asked his sensei. 3 years ago. The boy hasn't changed either. I asked a week ago, and he gave a similar answer. I am busy, Jiraiya-sama. There isn't much here for a Sannin. I suggest you take your business to Hokage-sama. Jiraiya was a little peeved at the brat's attitude, but knew he wasn't getting anywhere with him, so had left the child alone. Good thing he had too, not that he knew that, of course, Naruto was moving things around that day. Are you going to try to take your responsibility as a parent seriously now, or still focus on Narumi? Jiraiya asked, looking at his student seriously. I don't know what to do with him, Jiraiya. I tried to teach him the family styles of taijutsu, but he denied that and asked why we were suddenly paying any attention to him. He even told us to our face he might move out, thinking he was an orphan and that we wanted to focus on Narumi. The scary thing is that he was right. I still want to focus on Narumi, just less because I know that I can trust Narumi's training in Kakashi's hands. But he is a total mystery to me. He is near emotionless, it almost makes me think he is one of Danzo's agents. Here Minato shuddered, thinking what the old war hawk would do with his son. He deserved a better childhood. Thinking that we weren't his parents all the time and focusing on Narumi, I can't imagine what I would have done in his position. He still doesn't call us Ka-chan or Tu-san either, only our names, and very politely as well. Just stuffing himself in his room to do whatever he does when he goes in his room. Not that Minato had tried hard, or at all, to find out what he was doing in there before the day before, when Kushina and he were surprised by his grades and that he was nominated as Rookie of the Year. With as perfect scores as one could get. Only Itachi Uchiha had gotten that high in this and the last generation. Well, it's done now, no use on lamenting on the past, just keep an eye on him, and if he shows any signs of, well, anything, let me know. Minato said to his sensei, in hopes the older ninja would be able to catch anything new about his pretty much ghost of a son. Ghost. Such a fitting word for him, seeing as we never notice him whenever we are in the same room or not. It's like he isn't there at all. Minato thought, a little depressed. I'll keep an eye on him, Minato, don't worry, Jiraiya said, vanishing out the window and leaving his student to think and do paperwork. So, I am an elite genin? Naruto whispered, looking at Kushina. That's what your father calls it. Your job, from what he explained to me, is to work with everyone for better results. If the Jounin sensei were ever incapacitated, then you would take over, and command the genin to safety, or if it's possible then to finish the mission. You also will take over training if the jounin ever asks you to. You are pretty much training by yourself while helping the genin. Another thing, you will have to attend weekly training sessions with each sensei to get used to the teams. Does that make sense, Sochi-chan? Kushina asked her son, getting a nod. They had finished the shadow clone a while ago. Naruto had surprised her by making one to check the chakra cost of making the clones. After finding the cost, he made 5 and sent them to another side of the training field with instructions to do something about a seal. Sochi-chan, what seal are you having problems with? I'm a seal master myself, I can help you with whatever you are having troubles with. Kushina said, hoping to get closer to her son and wanting to know how advanced he was without their help. Naruto stared at her. Blinking a few times, he continued to stare for a few more moments, making Kushina think that she had done something wrong again and was about to apologize, but was stopped by Naruto when he started talking. While your help would most likely get this project done much quicker, I would like to say that I was the one to make the seal from scratch, he said, making her lower her hopes of getting closer to her son. However, there are a few things that you could show me that would speed the process up a lot if you would be willing to teach me? Naruto asked, seeing her plight in her eyes. What do you want to know, Sochi-chan? She asked brightly. I want to know more about Uzumaki sealing techniques. The Uzumaki were, are, and always will be known for their sealing prowess. I would like to think they made a technique to fasten the pace of writing seals out on the battlefield, but I have no knowledge on where I could find such a technique, and was hoping you could teach me if they had one. Naruto whispered, looking at Kushina, who was more than a little surprised, but very happy at the outcome, and very proud of her Sochi-chan to ask for the Uzumaki sealing techniques. Gladly, Sochi-chan. Just know, I will not be an easy sensei in teaching the Uzumaki sealing techniques, she said, looking seriously at her son. If he could not do it, no, he can do it. I believe in him, she thought, looking at her Sochi-chan's face of determination. Or is that how his face always is? She couldn't tell. Determining to take it as his determination, she began. Sochi-chan, what do you know about the density of chakra? She began. Density of a person's chakra can affect multiple things, such as chakra affinities, reserve size, coil size, and jutsu size, length, or strength. Nodding her head, she accepted that answer, though had more to add. The density of a person's chakra does affect those things, yes, but it can also cause it to become solid if one makes it thick enough. Like so, she said, holding her hand out palm up while a signature chakra chain came out of her hand, with the links being a deep bluish black. And I know they are different color, I am just making them that color, it does have a purpose. Walking closer, Naruto looked at the links that looked to be about between 2 and 1.5 inches thick. Are you consciously making the chakra thicker? It seems like the chakra is solid, not like a liquid that I imagined it would be in. Though being a chain, one would hope it would be solid, he said, musing to himself. Very good, Sochi-chan. The chakra chains were the method of many Uzumakis to restrain tough opponents because of the surprise that comes with them. Getting the chakra chains to work, you need to physically make your chakra solid enough to hold something down. That is what we shall start with before we can get into the Uzumaki sealing techniques, Kushina said as they got started on chakra chains with her son. It had been 2 months and Naruto was getting used to the D-rank missions the Hokage kept sending him on. He had advanced in using the chakra chains and had found out what they were the precursor to when Kushina had told him about the real technique. Flashback. It was 3 weeks after graduation and only 3 of the teams had passed: Kakashi Hataki's team of Sakura Haruno, Narumi Uzumaki Namix, and Sasuke Uchiha, Kurina Yuhi's team of Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame, and Kiba Inuzuka, and Asuma Satobi's team of Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka, and Choji Akimichi. Naruto had gone on multiple D-rank missions with each team, though he had gone by himself quite a lot as well, using shadow clones to get the job done quickly and easily. He had just finished getting the chakra chains to work after studying Kushina's version more. It was more of an advanced chakra control method than anything else, as the user had to channel chakra through the chain to make it sturdy enough to grab something. Naruto had also figured out other uses of it as well. But Kushina was here to talk about the next step. Okay, Sochi-chan, next after the chakra chains is the liquid chakra. While it is usually easier to use the liquid chakra for the real technique, it gives you the right mindset and control needed to form the next step of the Uzumaki sealing. Use your chakra as a fluid. Let the ground be your paper and your chakra as your ink. Channel your chakra and control its flow on the ground to form whatever seal you want to write. Keep the image in your mind about what seal you are making to keep double-checking your work as you go. She kept talking as she knelt down and channeled chakra for the real technique. The chakra leaked out and spilled on the ground, looking a bit brighter than the chains were in color. Now it was a sod of bluish-green in color snaking along the ground as she formed a simple seal on the ground in front of her. With a small bang, the miniature exploding tag she wrote on the ground went off. Naruto watched Kushina and her chakra flow on the ground with interest, and had many ideas of seals he wanted to try when he mastered this. Flashback end. He had enough D rank stored to try out a C rank but knew he shouldn't in case something happened on it, which would need more than him on the mission. He was very cautious considering he'd gotten out of the academy only 2 months prior. He had done a number of training sessions with each team as well and found that each team had their faults, and each team was a bit lazy. Kakashi's team only worked on teamwork that wasn't there because of the personality dynamics. He had sparred with them each and all together, and only Narumi and Sasuke ever truly attacked him, though Sakura's screeches could count as an attack if it got to your ear. Kurenai's team worked harder in that they trained a little bit, but Kurenai mothered her team more than trained them, and it showed when he sparred with each member. Shino was cool-headed and could plan, Kiba was brash but had good takedown jutsu, and Hinata had a very good advantage over him with her Byakugan. Asuma's team was lazy is the only good way to put it. Ino was the only one who truly tried against him, and she had a tough time battling against him in his mind when she tried to possess him. Shikamaru only looked at him and planned, very well, but lazily. Choji was a very squishy person. He didn't like hurting his friends, and he counted Naruto as one of them after Naruto helped them train and gave them each tips about training. Only Sasuke, Narumi, Shino, Hinata and Kiba were any true threat to him, but each had a weakness. Sasuke was very overconfident and would start to rage after his first miss. Narumi was scatterbrained and had a hard time planning against him. Shino was a very repetitive once you figure out how to unravel the attacks it was simple. Hinata was a very shy girl that took a lot to get her to fight him, and Kiba was extremely brash and would make mistakes constantly. He had also kept up his appearances at the library, reading scrolls and writing notes on what he understood and what he got from the information. The library was a good place to him. It only really tolerated people who wanted to read or pursue knowledge, in all forms, opinions, fact, theories, and group resignation on some subjects. Most demon haters never went to the library for anything, so it was a safe haven for him. Plus the librarian and the others at the library were always helpful if he needed to find something. That day the Hokage had summoned him though to his office while he was working on a medical scroll. Wonder why Hokage-sama needs me? He thought on his way up the tower. Walking up the stairway to the office, he knocked politely. Enter. The Hokage's voice came through the door. Opening the door, he saw Kakashi's team and Kushina behind the Hokage, who was in his chair looking over mission scrolls. Ah, Naruto, good timing. Team 7 has requested a C-rank mission. I want you to accompany them, is that understood? What is the mission? He asked. Guarding a bridge builder from Wave. You are to stay with him until the bridge is finished. Okay? He said, looking at each of his shinobi in turn with his gaze landing on Kakashi last. Getting nods all around even if it was reluctant from the Haruno, he continued, okay, you will meet the client around 10 am at the village gate tomorrow, understood? Getting more nods, he only had one more thing to say to them. Everyone is dismissed. The next morning found Kakashi by the gate with Tazuna, who by the time he saw the team was less than impressed. This is my protection? A bunch of brats? The pink one looks like she would fall over at the first sign of trouble. The dark-haired one looks like he couldn't do anything without help. The other girl looks weak and would fall over at the first hit. And Mr. Silence looks like he could use a lesson on how to talk to people. He said, listing them off. Of course, Narumi was never one to accept insults from anyone, and tried to fly at the man only to be held back by her and Ai-san. Glaring at her brother for holding her back, she only saw the neutral expression and his whisper of it's not nice to attack someone just because they insulted you. Be the better person, he said, looking at her. Still glaring at her brother for being so neutral, she went and stood next to her sensei. Well, when are we leaving? She asked, a little irritated that she not only had to stay longer but got lectured by her brother. Well, are you ready, Tazuna-san? Kakashi said. Yeah, just keep me safe until I get the bridge finished, Tazuna said. As they walked out of Konoha, Naruto couldn't help but remember the warning given by the librarian when he went there last. Flashback. Uzumaki Namikaze-san, please come with me for a moment, the librarian asked him with a calm expression. Nodding, Naruto followed her into her office, where she usually kept a few hundred scrolls for personal use or for other seekers' usage. He had the privilege of seeing a few of those scrolls and what they contained. The room was lined with seals for privacy and storage in case she needed privacy or something she hadn't used in a while. Naruto knew she hardly ever used those seals, mainly because they were absolute. No chakra or vibrations could leave the room once the seals were active. Didn't matter if the door was open or not, with those seals active, nothing, no sound, and no chakra left the room until it was deactivated. No listening seal worked either. He helped design it, with help from other library members who were interested in the project. Most listening seals were used as a microphone that sent signals to the other end of the seal, so in shutting off any chakra from leaving the room, those seals were defeated. Also, there were seals that only recorded sound and then played back what had been recorded after grabbing the seal and playing it in another secure room to tell what went on. The seal that was designed worked like a bubble around every person in the room connected. No sound could be heard from inside the bubble, or could any uninvited listeners spy on the meeting. This aspect defeated any recording seal anyone could bring into her office. In applying this seal, the people within the seal bubble could accurately attest to the strength of the seal by the bubble of distorted area around them, like a heat wave passed through the area. The seal took a fair amount of chakra to use, but it had a very, very large battery. Every time a seeker, writer or a reader entered the library, they got their books and or scrolls and started channeling chakra into the seals on the underside of the tables. The seals worked like a charm against anyone spying either, as it distorted a lot of things including the Byakugan and Sharingan. The Byakugan couldn't get past the bubble of chakra to read the lips, and the Sharingan couldn't either, again because of the fact that the office had no windows, and once the seals were active no vibrations could be detected by ear or sight in the air around the door, since the bubble hovered a few inches before the door to stop said dojutsus. So whatever was said could be said in almost perfect knowledge that they were safe from spying. So I'm leaving the village for a while. On a mission to Wave, Naruto whispered. Narrowing her eyes at the location, she started instructing him in some things. While you are there, look for a girl named Tina. She dropped off the grid a while ago after she went there. She is a seeker and a very good one. You would be doing the library a favor if you found her and brought her back. I will of course update your account if you find her. Do not underestimate anything there. Tina is a Chunin level seeker, be careful. If something happened to her, it was beyond her capabilities of dealing with. I'm sure I don't need to tell you how wary you need to be when in that country. Also, as a bonus, if you are able to, then please find the ruins of Yuzushiogakure, view the scenery, and place a library marker for future reference, she said, finishing her instructions. The library marker was a beacon for library shinobi that was placed when someone high up in the library system had an interest in something and wanted to go there for future investigation, like the ancient forests in Iwa, or the healing springs in Suna, or maybe the insects and other strange flora or fauna. Nodding his head in silence, Naruto took everything in as the librarian smiled softly at the child who had done quite a bit to help the library. They were in his debt for getting a few seals ready for use. He had been commissioned for different seals by many people for different use, such as an invisibility seal, or a chakra suppression seal to use for prisoners. He had a lot of work to do. He couldn't wait till he had enough saved to move out. Then he could wholeheartedly start working on his seals and what he truly wanted to work on. Flashback end. Walking along the road, Naruto noticed a puddle on the road in contrast to the clear sky they had been having for the last few weeks, and deadpanned at whoever was in there. Note, his deadpan expression is very similar to his normal face. The only difference is the more annoyed expression in his eyes. Silently he substituted himself for a clone he had following them, and kept watch over what happened. It happened in a blur of motion for the genin, excluding Naruto in the trees. Two blurs came up from the puddle with huge metal claws around different arms and a chain connecting the two. Moving quickly, they dashed forward and wrapped the chain around Kakashi and Naruto, who were quickly sliced into pieces and killed. At least that's how Team 7 saw it happen. Naruto watched as the two missing nin went directly toward the guy they were protecting, but Narumi and Sasuke reacted fast enough to deter them enough to save him. Sasuke used a kunai and shuriken to pin the chain to a tree, pinning them together while still linked by the chain. They both released the chain simultaneously and charged the brats who dared attack them. Sasuke was having a rough time taking his opponent down, as he was faster and stronger than the genin. Narumi was having an easier time than Sasuke, but still a rough time as she was trained by the Hokage. After a minute of fighting, the two brothers were simultaneously knocked out by Kakashi, who headlocked Sasuke's opponent, and Naruto, who merely chopped the back of Narumi's opponent's neck. Naruto stood behind his opponent as he looked over the man and his sister. Seeing a scratch on his sister's hand, he reached out for it, looking at her in the eyes. Giving her hand to her brother, Narumi was completely unaware of what was going on, as it was just a scratch. "Hey, what is that green stuff?" she thought to her tenant. Yes, Narumi knew all about the Kyuubi, except for, unlike her mother who kept it locked up tight, she got to know the beast actually trying to get to know him. He was still a jackass, but hey, it was getting better. He tolerated her presence now instead of just shoving her out of the mindscape. He even accepted her compliments on how soft his fur was when she had climbed on his head one day. Strangely enough, it was those compliments that had made the Kyuubi wonder about what his container truly was like. He was not pleased by her brother's act of neutrality when he could feel the pain, but it was not his place. Kyuubi had kept most of what he knew to himself, other than the useless tales he had told Narumi. "It's poison, brat. Looks like your brother knows what's going down at least," the Kyuubi said as Narumi started to feel something different with her hand. Coming back to reality, she looked down and saw her brother concentrating on her hand with a green glow around her the scratch. His eyebrows were furrowed, showing just how concentrated he was. After a few moments, the green substance came out and Naruto used his medical chakra to take it off his sister's hand. Staggering back a few steps, Naruto took a few deep breaths before regaining his neutral facade. The looks on the genins' faces were different, however. Narumi looked thankful, Sakura looked annoyed at him again, and Sasuke looked at him in contempt. Why would he help someone who was weak enough to be hurt in the first place? Sasuke thought as he watched Naruto remove the poison from his sister. Guessing Sasuke's thoughts by his face, Naruto turned to him and spoke, Sasuke, it is the job of the strong to protect the weaker as they grow, for they are the ones with greater potential. Self-sustaining shinobi will only wilt as they stagnate in their skills. Naruto then turned to his sister and finished treating her poisoned hand. Finished with treating her hand, Naruto moved away and looked at Tazuna. I think you need to tell us why you are being targeted, Tazuna-san. Enemy ninja don't show up during C-rank missions, just thugs and bandits, not shinobi. Who would want you so dead as to hire missing Nin? Naruto questioned the man. Sweating at the accusation, Tazuna looked at the others and decided that they should know the truth. And so came forth the story of Gato Incorporated in Wave. The monster that owned the corporation that controlled the Wave population. Since you lied about the mission, I have no choice but to return to the village for the kids' sake. They aren't ready for something like this, Kakashi said as he started to move back but stopped when he saw Naruto staying by Tazuna's side. Naruto. Come on, we're going back, the Hokage needs to know about the mistake here. Naruto just kept staring at Kakashi with little to no emotion. Sighing, Kakashi looked at Naruto and said, You're going to keep going, aren't you? Receiving a nod from Naruto, Naruto then turned and spoke back to the team. You are the sensei of your team and hold power over them, yes, but I am a lone man cell with no sensei. An elite genin. Besides, doing the mission is the best for the end of our shinobi records. How often do you get to help free a nation? Naruto said, looking straight at Kakashi. Kakashi was now in a pinch. If he relented and allowed his team to go, they could be in danger. However, if he left, then Naruto would be in much greater danger than they would be. Neither decision would come without consequences, and pulling rank wouldn't work either because Naruto was a partner team in the mission, meaning if anything happened to them, he would be responsible to finish it, and vice versa. Closing his eye, he thought about the two situations and decided that he didn't want the Hokage's child by himself in another nation. That was just asking for trouble. Smiling at Naruto, he responded to Naruto's stare, We will continue with the mission. Causing a mental cheer through Team 7. The rest of the journey to the water was simple as they didn't really talk much. Sasuke was brooding as usual, Narumi was looking along the road for any more traps, and Sakura wasn't paying anything besides Sasuke attention, and Kakashi was paying attention to his surroundings while reading his smut. Sakura had asked if there were any ninja in Wave and was answered with a no. Wave didn't have ninja, as only country with villages had ninja. Lightning, rock, wind, fire, water, grass, rain, and others had villages, though the big five, lightning, rock, fire, water and wind, were considered the top five, being the biggest and strongest with the Kages as leaders of their villages. Naruto, who already knew this and other facts about each country, ignored it and kept looking at the road ahead. At least he did until Sakura tried to insult him again. Why aren't you paying attention, Naruto Baka? This is why you are so stupid, you never pay any attention to anyone, she shouted, successfully getting on his nerves for once. The reason I never paid any attention in class is because I already knew it. For example, did you know that the Raikage, said to be the fastest man alive because of his lightning armor, leads Kumogakure? Kumo also has a lot of lightning specialists, being in the land of lightning, which upgrades their already deadly kenjutsu. Naruto whispered in a whisper-like tone that had ice in it. Furthermore, what is more important to you, impressing the Uchiha, or becoming a kunoichi? You have no skills, loud as a banshee, and have no concept of stealth whatsoever, he said, staring at the girl who was trying to uphold a strong front, but was failing miserably. You have chakra control but no means to use it, you have no genjutsu, no medical jutsu, nothing but the Academy 3 that you had to do to graduate. So tell me, Haruno, who is more stupid, the one trying to impress someone not even interested in them, or the one constantly improving himself, giving tips and helping where he can? At this point, Sakura was in tears at his blatantly obvious points. Naruto, I think that's enough, Kakashi said, ending the verbal abuse Naruto was doing to his student. Completely relevant and useful advice, but she is still my student, Kakashi thought with a little remorse. Why did I pass this team again? Oh yeah, the council decided in its infinite wisdom that I had to teach this team. They had decided that after a bit of research looking who was going to train the last Uchiha, Sasuke had been the second golden child of Konoha, with Narumi being the first. Naruto was little more than a ghost to most people. Not after some idiot leaked it that Naruto instead of Narumi was the Jinchuriki. There were only a few attempts at assassination on him, both politically and on the streets, after the announcement. Of course, it was never proven who had done it. Kakashi mentally shook his head. He didn't need the reminder of how bad he had failed protecting his sensei's son from the abuse. As they walked along the road in silence, Naruto was going through his finances and other seals that he knew while keeping watch to pass the time. Kakashi was still reading his smut, though only flipping 2 pages every half hour, showing his attentiveness. Sasuke was brooding as usual, though had an inkling in the back of his head nagging him about what Naruto had said to him about the weak and the strong. Sakura was just looking at her crush, hoping to get some attention, though at the back of her head a voice started whispering things against Sasuke, like his arrogance, pride, and selfishness. As they reached the water, a boatman sailed up and Tazuna talked to him and got them in the boat. Kakashi had to walk a ways because the boat didn't have enough room for him. Naruto switched with him after a while so he could rest. He didn't have infinite reserves after all. The genin were quite surprised that the Naruto could do so much that they couldn't. Why didn't Tusan and Ka-chan teach me that? Narumi thought, a little sad that she was still so far behind her brother. How is he walking on water? Sakura thought towards the blonde. She still couldn't forgive him for embarrassing her in front of Sasuke. How could that loser have such skill? I needed to destroy him, Sasuke thought in fury. Fufufa naughty Kasumi-chan. Were the thoughts of the leader of the team. Okay, so I have just enough for an apartment, but not enough to keep me fed after that. I am going to have to either start taking more missions or selling some seals to the library, or a shinobi-only store. Okay, next is seals, and so Naruto's thoughts kept going through his finance options and possibilities of seals with the Uzumaki way. Once they arrived at shore, they got off and were walking to Tazuna's house when they walked by a nearby lake, and the fog seemed to thicken a little around the woods. Suddenly Narumi threw a kunai toward a bush where a thunk was heard. Walking over to check it out, Naruto saw a bunny with a white coat. Frowning, he picked up the bunny by its neck and showed it to Kakashi, staring meaningfully at the coat. Widening his eyes, Kakashi shouted out, "Get down!" with Kakashi grabbing Tazuna and the genin hitting the deck. Not a moment later, a giant sword flew over their heads, slamming into a tree where Naruto saw just what he wanted to see. An eyebrow-less ninja with cow print pajamas. Oh joy! He whispered out. Unluckily Zabuza heard and snarled at the brat, who thought to insult him. Quiet you! You're not so smooth yourself either, are you? You can't be above genin at most. Zabuza shouted, releasing his full ki on the group, getting a passed out Tazuna. Narumi was quivering, Sasuke was shaking, Sakura was on the floor holding her head, a blank jounin, and a miffed blonde. Said blonde just yawned at the ki and looked to where the pajama ninja was. Because I don't believe it to be worth my time either. Let's just cut to the chase, shall we? You need Tazuna dead, we need him alive. The same individual, different states of being. Naruto whispered out, a little annoyed. Bantering was, while fun, a waste of time right now. Excellent idea, brat. Let's begin. Hit and miss technique. As he said that, thick fog rolled in and blinded the group, the conscious ones anyway. They got ready to counter whatever attack this monster could cause. Not even a week into the mission, and I am in charge, yippee. Thought one Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Naruto was now walking along a dirt road. After dealing with Zabuza and his water clones, Naruto had taken charge because Kakashi had overused his Sharingan and collapsed from chakra depletion. It had gone well in the beginning. After Zabuza had pulled out his mist, Naruto dispelled it with a wind jutsu and Kakashi could see again. Once the shock of his mist disappearing left him, Zabuza had charged Kakashi and begun to duel him. It had gone well at first, but Zabuza had trapped Kakashi in a water prison and had then sent multiple water clones to attack the group. Funny how 3 of them had been sent at him. He had formed 5 shadow clones and attacked the clones in pairs. It wasn't too difficult. Seeing how water clones had 1/10 of the original's power, while shadow clones had equal power to their owner, the pairs had overwhelmed the water clones quickly, and once their targets were down, turned to the other genins. Just in time to see Narumi throw a kunai at Zabuza's arm from above the water. Naruto wasn't sure if she had planned it, but it had done more than just free Kakashi from the prison that had then won the fight against the assassin. After the fight, if you can call it that, was over, a mist Anbu had appeared and had taken Zabuza's body away, saying it needed to be purged of information. It was strange to him to see such information go to waste, but thought better of it since he had no say in mist politics. Now he had to deal with an uncooperative Uchiha, the golden child of Konoha, and a pink-collar monkey who had absolutely no motive for being here other than to try to woo the first child. Alright, Narumi, form 10 shadow clones and have them surround us, keep them hidden, in the woods following us as we walk. Make sure no one can see them. Once we get to the house, have them wait 5 minutes before dispelling. Okay, now that that's done, all of you surround Tazuna, and we will walk to his house. 14 clones poofed into existence, 10 of Narumi's and 4 of Naruto's. 2 of Naruto's clones went into the woods as well as Narumi's on both sides of the group, while one picked up Kakashi and another helped after waking Tazuna with smelling salts. Tazuna led the group to his house through the woods. As they came closer to the house, they saw it was an unassuming wooden house. Walking up to the house, Naruto made 2 clones and they ran off to the surrounding area. Tazuna opened the door first and walked inside. Hearing the door, a brown-haired woman came from another room and exclaimed, "Father! running up and hugging him. "Tsunami-chan," Tazuna said, hugging her back after moving a bit so everyone else could come inside. "Tsunami, these are the super ninja that Konoha gave to protect me," he said, ignoring the scowls the genin gave him after he insulted them at the village. Walking up to Tsunami, Naruto introduced himself and the team. "Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, is the genin leader at the moment. The black-haired one is Sasuke Uchiha, the red-head is Narumi Uzumaki Namikaze, the pink one is Sakura Haruno, and the spiky gray-haired man is Kakashi Hatake the Jonin. Do you have any spare bedrooms at the moment or somewhere he can rest?" Naruto asked in a volume just barely over a whisper. "Oh my! Of course, follow me," she said, showing the two clones where they could put the poor man down to rest. After putting him down for the night, the clones dispelled, startling the woman seeing two people just disappear into smoke, but just filed it under strange ninja things and walked back down the stairs to where her father was. Suddenly the door opened, and in walked a short kid that, to Naruto at least, looked emo. He looked at the ninja before rushing his grandfather, and hugged him saying, "Welcome back, Grandpa." Then looked at the ninja once more and left the room, walking upstairs. Narumi, ever being the blunt one, asked, "What's up with him?" Naruto sighed at Narumi's question while the civilians looked at each other a moment, then told the story of his adopted father, Kaiza. Naruto found the man to be very courageous as a civilian, while Narumi felt for the poor boy who lost his father figure. Sakura was taken aback at the story and was silent, while Sasuke just brooded. All the while the little voice in his head about Naruto's words were coming back, before being ruthlessly squashed not to be heard for some time. After the story, Naruto went upstairs to check on Kakashi. Walking in the room and looking at Kakashi, Naruto noticed that his breathing was steady and was out like a light. Making a clone to watch, he started to breathe deeply. Naruto and walked over to the man and kneeled down in front of the bed, sitting on his feet. It was a low bed, so his shoulders were less than 2 feet above Kakashi's chest. Making a hand sign and furrowing his eyebrows a little, Naruto put one hand above Kakashi's chest, and the familiar green glow of medical chakra sprang from his hand. Doing a diagnostic on someone was still a little unfamiliar to Naruto, hence the clone behind him watching his back in case anyone tried anything as he focused on the man in front of him. Closing his eyes, he focused harder and started his task of identifying everything that was wrong with the Jonin. 2 cracked ribs, minor bruising on chest cavity, very low chakra levels, and unknown warp in chakra pathway around Sharingan eye. Opening his eyes, Naruto opened the Jonin's flak jacket and poured healing chakra into the bruises and cracked ribs, watching as they started to slowly get smaller in size and lighter in color. Stopping the chakra, he leaned back and panted for breath. "Looks like I will have to keep practicing on medic chakra if it takes that much out of me." "How much time has passed?" he asked, looking at his clone. 4 hours. His clone said neutrally, looking at his original. Widening his eyes a fraction, Naruto looked at his hands. 4 hours? "I know I lose track of time when healing because of the concentration, but come on, 4 hours? He said, honestly surprised. His usual time to heal his own wounds were only half an hour, and even if that didn't get everything, it did get a lot of his wounds. He would usually stay in his room and work on the worst wounds like fractures and cracked ribs. Those wounds, however, took a long time to fix, and he ended being in his room for hours until dinner was called. Shaking his head, he made for the door, dispelling the clone on the way. Walking downstairs, he noticed an aroma of food going through the house and walked a little shakily to where he could smell the food coming from. Moving into the room, he saw Tsunami smile at him. "Dinner will be ready in a moment, Naruto-san. Please call everyone else to the table," she said. Dinner had been a quiet affair with no one talking. Even Sakura didn't talk. Not after her walk with Tsunami through the town and seeing the depression everyone in the city was in. Walking outside for a moment, Naruto breathed deeply and leaned against a tree, waiting for his clones to come back. Not a minute later, 2 of his clones turned up and looked at the original. Not much went on. No news on where they are. Gato's mansion has been found. More reconnaissance needed to find everything. And with that, they both dispelled, giving the original their memories. Thinking for a minute, Naruto's eyebrows came close to touching in a mild frown. TCH. Getting up, he made 20 shadow clones and sent them hunting. Find her was their only instruction. After giving them one of his medic scrolls, he turned around and smiled because he didn't even hear the clones leave. After making preparations for the night, Naruto walked up to the room he was staying in and saw the Uchiha and Kakashi sleeping. Not seeing any other bed, he shrugged and went back outside. Taking out a scroll labeled camping, Naruto unsealed a tent that could easily fit 2 people in it, 3 with little discomfort. The tent was a dull green and had a hard bottom. He had written seals on the inside of the tent as well, so no sound could be heard outside from inside the tent, while someone could hear the outside from the inside. It also had 2 sleeping mats in it with blankets and pillows as well. The tent was made by him for him and anyone else he had with him if there wasn't room in another room. Activating his security seals, he nodded, then let down his mask, showing the weary child he was, and fell asleep quickly. Morning came too quickly for the sleeping child, and he wasn't ready after that night. Nightmares came too easily. In his opinion, he envied Narumi, who could run to her parents to comfort her about them. Then again, he wasn't sure she had any nightmares to begin with. What could she have nightmares about with the QB watching her? Best not to think about it. Shaking his head, Naruto got up and got ready for watching the other kids. Dressing and putting his tent away, he walked into the tree for a minute to meditate as his usual morning routine. Making one clone to watch him, he closed his eyes and started to breathe. Narumi wasn't having a good morning. She woke up with a crick in her back and couldn't get rid of it. Sleeping in the same room as Sakura didn't help, as Sakura didn't really like her after what her brother said about her yesterday. Sakura couldn't believe that Naruto would diss her like that. Narumi thought it was good for the girl that she should take his advice and move on and actually train. She didn't voice her opinion though, as whenever she did to the girl, Sakura would ignore it and then go all fangirly and start talking about makeup and other beauty products that Narumi didn't waste her time with. She had woken up at 8 o'clock as always since team assignments. Not a moment later had Sakura woken up and started talking to her about the great Sasuke-kun. Shudder. Narumi was sure the pinkette could write a book about Sasuke. She just didn't see it. Sure, he had all the mystery that most girls liked but was too emo-ish for her tastes. Her brother though was much more of a mystery compared to Sasuke. Sasuke was an open mystery, everyone could look into it and find everything about him since it was pretty much common knowledge about him and his clan. Naruto though, she was sure that only about 4 people really knew: her brother, her, Hinata, the librarian, and Shino. She was his sister so had access to him. Hinata would always watch him in class and during practice to see what he could do. The librarian, well, Narumi had seen the librarian talking to Naruto enough to tell she knew him. Shino would always sit with him in the library and would on occasion talk to him about some things that confused her. Narumi wasn't sure how Sasuke could beat that, considering all he did was stay quiet and grunt when called on. Naruto though would answer in a way that revealed only what he wanted to reveal and in a voice level that made you listen in case you couldn't hear him. He was quiet, reserved, nice if you got close to him, and more than a little protective if he got close to you. Narumi, Sakura said, startling her out of her thoughts. Breakfast is ready. Come on down when you're ready. Leaving the room again, Sakura left Narumi in her position on the floor sitting cross-legged, and got up. Passing through the door and going downstairs, Narumi couldn't help but feel like she was forgetting something. Once she got to the table, she saw her team at the table. Who are we missing? Narumi asked the people at the table. They just shrugged. But Tsunami, who was coming out of the kitchen, answered. Naruto-san said he had already ate and would wait outside for your team when you all were ready. She said, passing on the boy's message to the team, getting one light frown from the Uchiha, a scowl from the Haruno, and a smile of gratitude from Narumi. Thank you, Tsunami-san, Narumi said. Just as she said that, the door opened and Naruto walked through. He looked at the table, seeing everyone up, nodded at them, then walked upstairs. Narumi just smiled gratefully at having her Oni-chan on the mission with her. Opening the door to Kakashi's room, Naruto walked and made a clone to watch and proceeded to use medical chakra to diagnose how he was doing after yesterday. No bruises, and ribs are healed. Patient suggested for 2 days of bed rest for full recovery. Unknown warp in chakra pathway still present. More study is needed to fully diagnose warp in chakra pathway, he said neutrally. Looking down, he saw Kakashi staring at him with his one eye open. I didn't know you were a medic, Kakashi said. Neither do most people. Did you hear everything? Naruto asked. Nodding, Kakashi made an upside-down U and I smiled at Naruto. Thank you for healing me. Now what did you mean by unknown warp in chakra pathway? And where is it? He asked curiously. Normally chakra pathways are smooth and straight towards wherever the chakra is needed. Behind your Sharingan eye, the warp is that the pathway is twisted. But that can wait, the chakra can still get to your eye, and that is what's important for right now. Right now we have a situation, he said, getting Kakashi's attention on the now instead of the pathway. While my clones were doing scouting on the island yesterday, they found a bandit camp with 3 cages of people in rags, he said with narrowed eyes slightly at the memory. Kakashi narrowed his eyes at the mention of the people and sat up. Feeling his reserves, Kakashi was pleasantly surprised to find so much in them. Did you fill some of my reserves up last night? He asked the young medic. Nodding, Naruto wondered why that was relevant. Smiling again at the boy, Kakashi stood up and immediately sat back down after a stern look from the boy. Can you give me enough chakra for one summon? I need to get a message to Hokage-sama about this. He grabbed a scroll and started writing on it for the message about the mission so far and wondered what all he should say. If anything, we need medics, female medics, and food for the people in the cages. I have enough to shelter them for a couple days, but then most of my stores would be empty. The only other thing I can suggest is blankets and clothing. Everything else is up to you. I have clones in place to get them free with a little notice in advance. Maybe 20 minutes to get everything ready on their end. Naruto said while moving over to Kakashi and started with giving him some chakra for the summoning as he was writing out the request. Summoning jutsu, Kakashi said before slamming his hands down on the ground and completing the jutsu. A puff of white smoke appeared with a brown pug in the middle with a blue vest and a blue leaf forehead protector on his head. Yo! What's up, Kakashi? The pug asked. We need this to get to Hokage-sama as soon as possible, Pakken, Kakashi said to the dog. Alright, Kakashi, Pakken said. Grabbing the scroll in his mouth, the pug opened the window and dropped out. Looking out the window, Naruto couldn't even see the dog anymore, testifying to its speed. Naruto then turned to see Kakashi standing up. Frowning, Naruto walked over to Kakashi and tapped the back of his knees, making him fall till Naruto caught him by the back of his collar and unceremoniously dropped him on the bed that he was on earlier. Do you honestly expect me to let you walk around after you used the summoning when you had chakra exhaustion yesterday? Naruto said with one eyebrow raised. Nervously chuckling, Kakashi got comfy on the bed again, sitting up, and then turned to Naruto. Are you going to train them, Naruto-san? Kakashi said, surprising Naruto. Naruto raised an brow in silent question, which he received. Sigh, they will need more training if they will be able to handle both the bandits and whatever else Gato has coming our way. Thinking for a moment, Naruto remembered it was part of his duty to train the other Jounin's genin, so he mentally resigned himself to training the trio of uncooperative children. Naruto merely nodded at the Jounin, receiving a happy smile in return. Now, since that is out of the way, you are going to stay here in bed resting. I will have Tsunami send up food for you to eat after you wake up. Now sleep, Naruto said to Kakashi as he was lying down, and put his glowing green hand on Kakashi's head while Kakashi was then out like a light. I am very glad I learned how to do that, Naruto thought. Standing up, Naruto looked outside to see only a few clouds in the sky. Nodding to himself, Naruto made a clone to watch Kakashi to make sure he got his rest and alert Tsunami-san when he woke up for food. Not that he would be waking up soon anyways. The jutsu he used to put him to sleep was medical-based, so it naturally turned the body towards sleep for maximum amount of rest, instead more forced methods that could have the mind battling itself to keep awake and fall asleep at the same time. His way was safer for patients that needed sleep. Walking downstairs, Naruto passed the others as he walked to the door, nodding to them each briefly. Narumi returned his nod, Sasuke ignored it, and Sakura looked away. Kakashi-san has left me in charge of your training for the next 2 days until he recovers. What have you all learned? We have done teamwork drills and strategy sessions to better work together. Not much for individual growth, Narumi said, ignoring the glares from her teammates. Closing his eyes, Naruto thought about how he would train them all for a moment. But apparently the others didn't like that he was training them. Why are you training us, Baka? If any one of us should train us, it should be Sasuke-kun, the pink one said with devotion. Not disturbed in the slightest, Naruto continued thinking before he opened his eyes right before another outburst by Sakura. I'm going to train you because I know more than he does. Honestly, I probably know more training techniques than probably Hataki-san does at the moment. It just depends on what you all want to do. But heavy training would take more time, so we are going for more general training right now. So that considered, have you all learned the tree walking technique? He asked, getting a shake of Narumi's head indicating a no. Alright, follow me. Tsunami-san, I am going to take them training. We will be back for dinner, don't worry about lunch. I will deal with that. Your house is protected right now, so don't worry about anything, he said to everyone. And with that, he walked out. Narumi got up, gave her dishes to Tsunami, and followed her Oni-chan, while Sakura only followed after Sasuke did begrudgingly. Walking out to the forest, Naruto stopped at a few trees that were just a little ways in the wood. Looking back at his charges, Naruto spoke. The tree walking technique is used by all ninjas and is a method to control the violent storm that is our chakra. If we had no control over our chakra, it would be impossible to use the more advanced chakra techniques such as the Hokage's Rasengan, or something like the water dragon you saw back when Hataki-san was fighting Momochi-san. Having said that, to use the tree walking technique you need to focus chakra to your feet in an even layer in order to stick to the surface you want to be on, or in this case a tree. Any questions? He asked, looking at the 3 genin. Getting 3 shakes, Naruto sent them to their own trees to start working on it. I would suggest starting slowly. 1 foot at a time until you are sure that foot will stick to the tree. And keep kunai to track how far you get each try. While they were doing this, Naruto was currently meditating in a cross-legged position on the grassy floor. He was just sitting there peacefully. A little too peacefully for Sasuke not to want to hit him in the face. So he took out a kunai and threw it at Naruto. With no outward facial motion, Naruto caught the kunai and stabbed it in the ground next to him, and continues meditating. Scowling at his casual ignorance of his threat, Sasuke charged Naruto. This idiot had stung his pride. He would prove he was the best and elite. Narumi was just staring at Sasuke in apathy as her teammate charged her Oni-chan. It was only a matter of time before Sasuke's temper flared at her brother. She knew how it was going to end, so she just kept going on the exercise. Sakura, on the other hand, was ecstatic that her crush was finally going to show his dominance over the blonde idiot. Sasuke was 5 feet from the prone blonde when he started his wind-up, throwing his fist forward to plant it in the blonde's face. Not a foot from the blonde's face, however, a clone caught his punch and stopped it cold. Sasuke was shocked. When did he make the clone? When did it get here? How did he not see the clone? All these questions and more were raging through the youth's head as he stared at the apathetic eyes of the clone who merely pushed him back. You still haven't finished the exercise, Uchiha-san. Boss will give you a fair spar after you finished. Now go get to your exercise. The clone stated after Sasuke was done staring at him like a ghost. Sakura was no better, however, and was staring slack-jawed at her crush's casual brush-off. In all that time, Narumi was still slowly walking up the tree as her brother had suggested, and found it to be easier than what Sasuke was trying, since he was trying to run up the tree with inertia instead of how it is supposed to be, a chakra-controlling exercise instead of an endurance exercise. 3 hours passed and Sakura was on the ground, sweat pouring out of her pores and heaving great breaths in her need of oxygen. Sasuke was on ground, panting slightly less heavily than Sakura but still panting. Narumi was lying on her back as she tried the exercise again, walking up the tree and getting a good way up before it cracked slightly, and she wobbled for a moment before she steadied on her back foot and stepped forward once more. She made it to the top within 4 hours while the others couldn't. She couldn't help but gloat a little at them. Ha! Take that. 3 hours in and I'm farther than both of you. She grinned madly before she felt the smack of a paper fan. Looking behind her, she saw her brother with a paper fan in his hands outstretched. In her confusion, she lost control and fell to the floor. Ah! Right as she was going to meet the forest floor, she flipped and landed on her feet with a loud thump. After knowing who did it, she mock glared at her brother for her decent and pointed at him. Oh, I was doing well that time. Why did you hit me? No bragging, he said blankly. Pouting, she went back to walking up the tree. Another 3 hours had passed, and all 3 of them were on the ground panting. Looking at the 3 of them, Naruto made 3 clones and had them heal them before making them go to sleep. They needed rest for now. Using his medic sleep technique, he put them to sleep. He had the clones bring them back to the house and put them on the futons for each person, putting the blankets on each of them. Narumi was tucked in, but the others weren't showing his slight affection to her. Turning around, he saw Tsunami smiling at him before allowing him back through the door. Such a responsible gentleman, she said as they made their way to the kitchen. Naruto had sent a group of clones out to the bridge in order to guard Tazuna. Naruto was mostly just doing what he thought he should as the highest member of the team. Naruto was about to respond but felt a clone he had stationed around the bandit camp dispel, showing him their memories. The slight widening of his eye was the only sign showing his shock at the memories. His pace quickened as he walked out the door. I most likely won't be here for dinner. The others should wake up soon and will most likely be hungry as well. There are ingredients in the kitchen that should cover tonight well enough, he said just before closing the door behind him. Moving to the window to see where he was going, Tsunami was shocked to see she couldn't see him anywhere but put it up under the ninja abilities folder in her brain. Slightly worried, she got to work on the dinner for the other ninja in her house. Where is she? Naruto signed to one of his clones nearby his position. It had taken him an hour running and tree jumping to get here, so it was a ways away from the bridge builder's house. In the second cage, being helped by a few of the other women. It seems they were more than a little rough with her. The clone signed back, more than a little peeved at what these pigs would do to others. Closing his eyes in frustration, Naruto merely looked at the cages, wishing them to burn for what they represented to him. The caging of a life and its remaining sanity. It was not going to be easy to talk to the women if they were scared of him. He could only think of 2 things to do right now. He made a single clone with one order: use it to calm them down for a while. Hopefully that will help settle them down some and relax the guard for a while into falling asleep. With that done, the original looked sadly at the cages and saw his clone meditating above the cage in the middle. Naruto saw the hand signs. He saw the rigid posture being held, now just to hope that helped the women. He could feel the different chakra leaking out of the clone as it sat upon the cage. It felt calm and cool, like a glass of water during summer. Smiling softly at the jutsu success, Naruto walked around the cages, keeping an eye on the guards. Walking around the cages, he looked between the women and children, looking for one in particular. The women didn't even notice him because of how deep and nice their sleep was. Stopping in front of one woman in particular, he kneeled down in front of her and started his diagnostic jutsu. She had dirty brown hair with pale skin and slightly flinched at his touch. He frowned at that. After a moment of using the diagnostic jutsu, his face turned into a scowl at the mistreatment that was shown to him. Not wanting to be there when she woke up, he placed a scroll in the woman's lap with the kanji for book on the scroll and left. Once outside the cage, he made 20 more clones to watch the camp and left, leaving the other clones in charge. Waking up was a little harder the next morning because of how late he got back. It honestly amazed him how long his clone could last while keeping it up. It was a draining technique, so it surprised him that, well, I guess it lasted long enough. He thought as he recalled the clone's memories. 4 hours of just sitting there pumping out a calming presence. I didn't think a mere clone would last that long. Shaking his head in mild shock, he got up and resealed his tent before walking into the house. Inside the house, the others were still asleep, so he went up and into Kakashi's room to check on him. His clone was still there from yesterday, just standing vigil over the other sensei. He popped it, gaining its memories. Nothing had happened and Kakashi was still asleep, it seemed. Moving over to where he was a day before, Naruto started working on him again, checking his reserves, checking his injuries, and making sure the warp behind his eye hadn't changed. Right after he moved his hand again, he saw the sensei's eye staring at him, apparently wide awake. "Good morning," he said casually. "Ugh. What did you use on me?" Kakashi said, asking about the technique from the day before. "I slept way too long. I made a technique solely to put someone to sleep using the brain's natural paths instead of drugs or illusions that your system could fight against. This way you would stay asleep longer and get the rest you needed. And it seems I misjudged the strength of your reserves. A few more hours of sleep and you should be right as rain. But right now I want you to know something. There is a Konoha Kunoichi in the bandit camp being held prisoner," he said as Kakashi stiffened, then his eye turned cold and stared at Naruto. "Why did you go there without any backup, Naruto?" "Because I had clones watching everything going on in the camp. Everything was under watch. There are 5 clones watching the surrounding of the camp, watching everyone who comes in and out, 20 clones watching the inside of the camp in various places, and 6 clones watching the prisoner cages, 2 each," he said, not bothered in the slightest at the man's tone of voice. Sighing, Kakashi knew he wouldn't be able to get any guilt out of him for going on his own. Nevertheless, it was dangerous to go by yourself. "What if you got caught?" he reprimanded. "Then the clone here would have been notified and you would be alerted. It would have told you the situation, then healed you to the greatest extent it could before dispelling, so you could be at your best, considering that I was captured. The seals I placed around the house would have kept it safe in my absence for a couple weeks. By then everything would most likely be over. But what are we going to do about the Kunoichi in the prison?" he asked, getting Kakashi to narrow his eye at the news before closing his eye for a moment. "We will wait for the backup to come to take down the camp. Have you been sending your clones to watch Tazuna on the bridge?" he asked, all of a sudden getting an annoyed look in return. "Yes, I have. I remember why we are here," Naruto said, a little irked. Nodding his head, Kakashi couldn't help but sigh a little bit. "Good. Take care of my cute little genin now, Naruto," he said as he relaxed and fell back to get ready to fall asleep again as Naruto's hand glowing green came over his eyes. "You became a fine ninja, Naruto. You'll do your parents proud," Kakashi thought before going out like a light again. With Kakashi out again, Naruto once again got up and went down the stairs to see everyone at the table, and again said that they would be training again today. "Tsunami, I have clones surrounding the house, so you don't need to worry. Tazuna, there are 20 clones waiting outside for when you go to the bridge again." And with that he left the house again, waiting for the other genin to follow. They were at the same clearing as yesterday, only this time Naruto was by a tree himself and was walking up the tree on his hands instead of his feet like the others were. They all focused on the task as Naruto had clones pelting them with small rubber balls, forcing them to move out of the way or get hit. Naruto was twisting and turning so that the balls hit the tree instead of him. Every time he moved up he would twirl instead of actually just moving normally. A few hours passed and Naruto was still going, only now doing cartwheels on the tree as his clones were stuck between throwing the rubber balls and small rocks at him. Narumi was now running on the tree like crazy, keeping out of the clones' sight, as they were pretty accurate with their throws. Sakura was on the floor with smoke coming out of a small pile of balls surrounding her. Sasuke wasn't doing much better but was walking swiftly up the tree with balls hitting him once in a while, making him lose a little grip, but got it back before he fell off the tree. As Kakashi was waking up he didn't see Naruto in the room until he saw a poof of smoke in the corner of the room and assumed a clone had been stationed there to let the original know when he was awake. He felt great. A little sluggish, but hey, that's what you get for sleeping non-stop for a little under 2 days straight with no muscle movement. Standing up, Kakashi could feel his body protest a little but ignored it for the wonderful smell coming through the underside of the door. Going through the house, Kakashi saw Tsunami was in the kitchen while Tazuna was nowhere to be seen. Walking into the kitchen, Kakashi saw her making food for 3 people and decided to speak up. That smells wonderful, Tsunami-san," he said, smiling at the woman. "Kaya." So startled by his sudden presence, Tsunami immediately took out a cooking pan and whipped around, accidentally smacking Kakashi, sending him back into La-La Land. Blinking rapidly, Tsunami saw whom exactly she hit and immediately got embarrassed. She picked him up and returned him to his bed. Hopefully he would forget. When Naruto came back to the house, he expected Kakashi up. His clone had seen Kakashi wake up, so Naruto knew he was perfectly fine, so where was he? "Tsunami-san, where is Hataki-san? I need to speak to him," he said, silently amused by her reactions to his questions. Well, he needed a bit more rest, so I sent him back up to his room. Ahahaha, she finished off a little lamely with nervous laughter. Naruto merely looked at her for a moment before nodding and walked upstairs to Kakashi's room. Opening the door, he saw Kakashi on his bed. Only instead of sleeping, he had swirls in his eyes and a giant red bump on his head. Sighing a bit, he walked over, made a clone, and started healing the bump. After a half hour of healing, Naruto sat back and looked at the sensei that again had his eye open, a little foggy, but it was open nonetheless. "What happened?" he asked groggily. "Tsunami-san said you needed a bit more rest, so she put you back in your room," Naruto said. "Oh yeah," he replied, not about to say she knocked him out with a frying pan. "Well, let's go downstairs." As they walked downstairs, they both heard an ear-splitting shriek. That sounds vaguely familiar, Naruto thought as he raced downstairs with Kakashi in the lead to wherever the scream came from. As they rushed outside, they saw an amusing sight. A sight that had Kakashi slump a little at who was there. Sasuke was in shock on the ground, just staring at two people wearing bright green leotards. Each one had a person on their backs with two other people on the side panting heavily. The first one, obviously older, had a bowl-shaped haircut with humongous eyebrows, with a flak jacket and a Konoha headband around his waist, orange leg warmers and shinobi sandals. The second, green, was practically a clone of the first except slightly smaller eyebrows and no flak jacket. The person on the older one was green-faced with swirly eyes, brown hair done up in buns on her head. The person on the younger one was slightly less green but still green, with blank pupils and long black hair going down his back. The person on the right of the taller green one was a panting female with straight brown hair and had a flak jacket on with her headband on her neck. The person on the left of the smaller green one was panting heavily while looking at the green people with caution. She had black hair and was a tad shorter than the woman on the larger green person's right. "We did not need to go that fast, guys, and I'm sure Kakashi-san's team is well able to deal with whatever they need to at the moment," the larger woman said, a little irked at the green man. "Nonsense, Yukako-san. While it is true that my eternal rival could hold his own for now, I'm positive his youthful team would need some assistance with the many unyouthful people here," he proclaimed loudly. "I take it you are our reinforcements, Mato-san?" Naruto said to the people standing there. "Indeed, we are youthful, Naruto-kun. Hokage-sama has told me to give you this after we reached here safely," he said, holding out a scroll for Naruto to take as he still held the bun-haired girl on his back. "Okay. I will look it over later. Why don't you come inside so I can check on the people on yours and your student's back?" he said, gesturing them inside. As they walked in, Kakashi had already walked inside and informed Tsunami and Tazuna about the new arrivals. The women had introduced themselves as Yukako Goto and Kaneo Tokei. They were both Tokubetsu Jounin level Menin, while the Genin had a year's worth of experience under their belt. Gai Mato was the Jounin in charge, while his Genin were Niji Hyuga, the black-haired male that was on the smaller green person's back, Lee Rock, the smaller green person, and Higurashi Tenten, a weapons mistress that was on Gai's back. Setting them down on the couch, the medics included, Naruto started with Tenten and performed the diagnostic jutsu on her to assess how she was after being carried. Slight dizziness, pulled shoulder muscles, most likely from hanging on to Gai, chakra levels steady. He whispered out, shocking the medics, seeing as they had never seen Naruto at the hospital for medic training before. "Excuse me, Uzumaki-san, can you explain how you came to know the diagnostic jutsu?" the taller medic, Yukaka, said with curiosity in her voice. "I learned from myself after watching some medics work, and theory-based analysis of chakra coating someone's muscles from scrolls," he said, moving on to Niji after putting his hands on Tenten's shoulder for a brief couple of minutes. "Though I have a hard time focusing on other things while I use medical chakra, if you could give me a few more control exercises, then I can counter the concentration problems," he said just before activating the diagnostic jutsu again on Niji. Pulled shoulder muscles on both sides, slightly higher than Tenten-san's, most likely from holding onto a smaller body, chakra levels steady. He again whispered out. For a moment he scanned over the Hyuga's head before narrowing his eyes a fraction at what he found and turned off the diagnostic jutsu. "You should be fine after tonight, no strenuous exercising for 12 hours at least," he said before looking over to the medics on the couch. "Do you need any help?" he asked and moved away from the couch, seeing their heads shake. "Gai-san, Yukaka-san, we need to plan when and how we will deal with the bandits and slaves once they are free. Please follow me, I will show you where we can plan," he said after making a Kage Bunshin to find Kakashi and show him to the room where they would be planning in. It would be a long night planning against the bandits, and what to do about the slaves that were freed. It was the morning after the second group came and everybody was in the kitchen, except for Naruto. "Where's Oniai-chan?" Narumi asked the Jounins. "Naruto-san is out youthfully doing recon on the most unyouthful bandit camp since he already knows where it is." Guy spoke out in his usual loud speech, getting the Genin's ire at his volume this early in the morning. Looking over to the other team, Narumi saw Lee and Niji looking wide awake, while Tenten still looked tired from running and then holding on to Guy the whole way here. "We are off for training today as we need everyone at the top of their game for today and tomorrow," Kakashi said. "All we are doing today is guarding the bridge and Tazuna-san's family," he said, smiling at his Genins. Nodding, Narumi tore at her breakfast. Impressed, Tenten looked on as Narumi ate her way through her portion quickly while not spilling a drop or crumb of her portion. She was like a vacuum. A very polite vacuum. Tenten shook her head and decided it wasn't worth it, and got started eating her own breakfast, knowing that everyone would be dealing with a lot of trouble within the next few days, so she would need her strength to pull her own weight. After breakfast was had, the group had decided upon a good schedule to guard Tazuna, his family, and the bridge. Sasuke and Niji would guard the bridge first and relax at home, then guard the family, following them wherever they wanted to go. While Lee and Sakura guarded the family first, then guarded the bridge, and then rested last. While Tenten and Narumi finished the rotation of rest, guarding the family, then the last group to guard the bridge. Few things happened through the day as the two prodigies studied each other and decided they were worthy enough to allow them in their presence. While Sakura had to dodge floating hearts shot from Lee's eyes when he blinked, and Narumi and Tenten bonded over them being the normal one on the team, well as normal as a girl with a sharp pointy thing fetish and a girl with a small brother complex can be. The third team had waterfall tears falling down their faces as they finally found someone to talk to who understands their pain of the weird teammates. Tenten had Niji Fate Hyuga, who ranted on and on about fate and that it controls what your limits are, while the other was a training nut, rock youth Lee, with horrible fashion sense. Now Tenten was far from being a girly girl and was more tombish, but still she did not understand how her sensei got Lee into that thing, even more wearing it all the time. And her sensei? Gosh, Guy was worse. He had them run around Konoha multiple times, for crying out loud. For a warm-up. At 5 o'clock in the morning. And Guy did it gladly while crying youth all the time. It was ridiculous. She was almost at the breaking point where she would use every pointy thing in her inventory to stab them. While Narumi had the last Uchiha whose ego almost had sentience on its own apart from Sasuke himself. Then there was his attitude in and out of training. It was repulsive almost. I mean, come on, you don't go up to someone and demand someone to do something, unless you were the Hokage or a much higher ranked person than the other, and that's different monster all on its own, and even then you don't do it to your enemies. I mean, come on, for crying out loud. Her other teammate, Sakura, was a fangirl for the first teammate. It was bad. You could never win an argument or push something, because as soon as you did something, then the fangirl would support the Avenger, and you would lose. And let's not forget the perverted sensei who constantly had his nose stuffed into the little orange novels known as Ika Ika. He would hardly train them, but when he did, it was team training, hardly anything, because their skills weren't up so far as to have anything to support the other teammates with yet. Yes, Narumi could sympathize with the weapon user and even traded addresses to train together sometime later when the mission ended, to work on things between girls and between fellow sane-going insane comrades in arms. Naruto was sitting on a hill relaxing by a tree just beyond the bandit camp. It was situated with water on one side with a port to escape by and a forest on the other, as a means to hide when the enemy came from either direction. He would have to set explosives on the port and keep the ships from moving, or to destroy the ships themselves. Maybe I could, yeah, why not? He thought, smirking at the bandits' near loss. Making 4 clones, 2 went to the side of the camp just inside the forest line, while the other 2 left for something else. Overall, the camp was situated right next to the harbor, with a road going through the camp heading to the forest. A light picket fence held around the camp, showing that it had been there for a while, and was still going. Naruto was watching the camp like a hawk. Nothing moved out of his gaze. What seemed to be the commanding bandit was walking around the camp while they had no idea they were being watched by a figure by the woods. They worked for Gato. After all, nothing happened without his no even hiring the ninjas. He was a rather tall man with a brown hair and a smug face. His clothing was all brown or black, while he had a single band around his biceps that was white. He had a sword strapped to his back as well. Naruto was a little cautious of the man. If Gato had hired him, then he was evil, no doubt. However, that didn't automatically make him weak either, since he worked with the bandits. The fact that they all respected him, Naruto took into account that since they pretty much listened to him regularly, they accepted receiving orders from him, making him above them in their minds. Naruto dropped his hands from doing the water style telescope jutsu, a neat little trick he had discovered from the library. It's amazing what theory could do by itself with a little practice. With a little chakra, the user could focus a thin layer of water in front of him into a lens to look closer on what the water was focused on. Seeing as how he had 4 clones using the jutsu about 2 feet wide each, it was a little taxing, but he had pretty much memorized some of their shifts. Good thing he knew he had a lot of chakra and good control over it, or else he would have seen the dirt instead of a clear picture of what he was looking for: the guards, their shifts, who was in charge, when anyone came by, and the terrain around them. Looking for traps or anything else the bandits used to their advantage, one can never know too much about one's opponent. After putting the water back in a sealing scroll, he got up stretching and popped his joints. While he was there for a few hours with clones writing things down, numbers of people, equipment level, positioning of the tents to the prison cages, and other things of strategic value. With his part done, he made 2 more clones and had them use the telescope jutsu for any more information on the bandits, or anything significant happening. Walking into the forest, Naruto took a breath and started to sort through the memories of his clones again. Nothing much had been out of place, so he wasn't really worried. Now all he had to do was travel back to Tezuna's house. But before that, he thought making another 2 clones and gave them a scroll of blank tags, ink, and a brush he used for sealing. As they left the area, he went to a clearing in the forest he had found on the way to the camp. The clearing was a good size with trees lining it, so it was hard to see without actually looking for it. Green grass all through the clearing's ground, with sunlight spilling around the clearing, lighting up the scenery around and warming up its inhabitants. Now to get started, for a while he had wanted different types of clones, and seeing Zabuza's water clones only enforced it in his mind that he would want an elemental type clone. Plus, with the sun out and no mist, it would be easy to keep going for a while. So what type of element? My elements are water and wind and lightning, so it would stand to chance that I find out how he made the water clone. However, wind has always been my favorite, he thought, nodding his head a little. Making 2 shadow clone to swap theories with, he quickly started to debate on how to make the clone. This debate then lowered into a childish fistfight between 2 of the same person, while a dust cloud rose around the 2 with weird sound effects coming out. Good thing he made this clone a little sturdier. Whenever he got into a debate on jutsu theory and chakra theory, all manners were off, and he was little more than a child fighting to get his point across. It was the same at the library as well. He had even fought with the librarian and multiple others to get his point across, not even after a minute. It was to this scene that a different shadow clone came to, as he quickly figured out the reason for the fight as they shouted theories and counter-theories at the other. Figuring out that it must only be 2 of them, he quickly stopped the fight and asked what they were debating about. After hearing the reason, this clone then thought a different way than these 3. Why not go towards an ice bunch instead of a water or a wind or a lightning one, since ice was the mixture of water and wind? Of course, this just led to them looking at each other, nodding seriously, the real Naruto making another clone to take up the 4th option, and then they all started debating again just as quickly as they stopped. The non-debating clone just stared at the dust cloud roaming around the clearing and then stopped the fight again with the real purpose of coming here in mind. It turned out that the prison cages were put under a giant pavilion tent because a storm was coming and they wanted to keep their slaves somewhat healthy. The real Naruto just nodded his head in gratitude before the dust cloud resumed its pace with a vengeance. Naruto! What happened? Narumi yelled as she looked over at her brother. He had just walked in the door and was limping with a black eye and bruises all over his arms, and his clothes were torn all to hell. His clothes were about as protective as paper at the moment, and not sealing paper either. The paper, you hit it with a feather, and it breaks, paper. But he looked very satisfied in himself, as if he had won the lottery or something else amazing. Everyone in the room was staring at him in a mixture of different emotions. The Jounin were on guard like a new threat came on the scene. Lee was worried and swore he would defeat whatever unyouthful people had harmed his comrade. Niji was looking in a little shock. He had a few spars with the boy and understood how strong he was, and if someone stronger than him came, they might be in a little trouble. Sasuke just stared a little harder at the beat-up form of the boy in front of him. Tenten was immediately worried for him since she didn't know how long he had to deal with limping coming here. The 2 female medics were concerned and rushed him, trying to get him onto a couch so they could help him as he had helped them. They didn't want to owe anything to a genin. Narumi herself just stared in horror as she looked on the beat-up form of her precious brother. I had a debate, was all he said, as if it explained everything. A loud thump was heard as every single person's face faulted onto the floor at his explanation. And debate? What kind of debate could lead to this kind of damage, Naruto-san? Tenten asked, more than a little irritated. A good debate. Arguing with good opponents, knowing every counter-argument, and every point inside and outside. It was awesome, he said with a small grin. At this point, Narumi had a giant tick mark on her head, and her flaming red hair had divided into 9 different parts with genjutsu flames in the background and in her eyes. Her mother had taught this in case she needed to put her foot down on someone who wasn't getting the point of something. Much to both Kushina's and Narumi's joy, it was just like Gai's sunset genjutsu. It was unbreakable Naruto, she yelled, bringing her fist down on his head. After his face was imprinted in the couch, she got him to sit up, and hugged him, saying how worried she was for her brother. Of course, Sakura attempted to follow her with yelling and trying to brain him for the many bruises on her limbs from the balls she had thrown at her from the tree walking exercise. Baka! Sakura yelled while bringing her fist down and attempting to jelly his brain. Of course it was not to be, as she was met with a single finger holding her fist back coming from the injured blonde himself, as his sister was still hugging his head. The fact that her entire fist lost against one of his fingers just cemented the foothold that had been growing in her mind, that Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was stronger than her and quite possible smarter, maybe not in academic studies. Her pride wouldn't let that go, but in the areas that mattered, understanding the knowledge that you knew, common sense, strategy, everything that she prized herself on, he was better. He didn't even have to look to block her strike. With a huff and barely restrained tears at the emotions warring inside her, she marched up the stairs and into her room. She needed to think. With that over, Naruto then got up out of Narumi's grip and dropped 2 scrolls onto Gai's and Kakashi's hands. That is everything on the camp from today, at least. Positions of the bandits, amount of them, camp set up, who is in charge, what I could see of guard rotations, prisoner number, prisoner statuses, and anything else I found interesting, as well as suggestions on ways to attack the camp. As I did not have knowledge of everyone's abilities, I tried my best based on what I could find on Gai-san's team when I brushed over them with the diagnostic jutsu. He said, and then walked up the stairs to a bed that he didn't have to set up this time. Narumi, Tenten, Kakashi's sweat dropped at his actions, while Niji stood impassively, still a little irked at his debate. Sasuke had a small tick mark at messing with the environment in the room upon his arrival. Gai and Lee were ranting about Naruto-san's youthfulness in gathering so much information. Narumi was currently in the girls' room with Sakura and Tenten on their own beds, while the medics had another room. She was on the floor with her legs crossed, her hands on her knees, and her head slightly bowed. If someone were to try to wake her, she would not respond. This was how she faced the biju in her stomach. She was currently arguing with him. "Why can't you tell me?" she asked as politely as she could. She was standing in an open meadow with grass growing everywhere and trees off in the distance. In front of her was a giant cage made of what looked like white wood. Inside the cage was the massive figure of the 9-tailed fox, Kyubi. "Because it's not my place to tell you. How would you like it if I told others your secrets because someone asked? There are other things that I can tell you, but that is not one of them. If you want the answer, then figure it out on your own. Be grateful I tell you anything, brat." The biju replied, growling a little at her persistence. "Fine. Then would you please tell me why you told me that in the first place if you weren't going to tell me the reason behind it? I mean, why would you tell me he smelled differently than me to begin with? How long have you known he smelled differently than Toussaint?" she asked, still trying to figure out everything. "Heh. He smelled differently for who knows how long. I don't know how long or why. That is up to you to understand it and find the reason for the difference. Now leave, I grow weary of this conversation," the beast said, mentally shoving her from her mindscape. Snapping her eyes open, she looked outside to find out it was still early night. "So I hadn't been in there long, huh? Looks like it's close to midnight. I need to get to sleep. There will be hell tomorrow, I can feel it," she thought as she lied down on her futon and began to sleep. Not knowing how true that is. Tenten woke up to the smell of breakfast wafting through the air. Smiling at the pleasant smell, she got up and did her morning routine before leaving the room, not even looking in the other kunoichi's directions. Walking down the stairs, Tenten noticed Naruto, Kakashi, and her sensei, Gai, were sitting around a small table looking at a map. Taking a glance at it, she noticed many X's and O's on the map with many other symbols inside a larger circle and a few X's with arrows around the circle. Walking over to the group from the stairs, she asked, "What's this?" "This is a map of the bandit camp that Naruto youthfully procured for us. The X's are main bandit points of convergence that Naruto noticed yesterday, and the O's are tents. The larger the O, the larger the tent. The arrows next to the X's are movement patterns that Naruto-kun youthfully noticed," he said in his normal exuberance. "Gai-sensei, it's too early for any youth to be up," Tenten said, getting a nice guy pose from her sensei while he started ranting about the power of youth, as he forgot what he was doing. "Indeed, Might-san, it is too early. Let us stoke our flames of youth with sustenance, as to keep our flames bright through this planning. Surely a few unyouthful bandits would be unable to stop the power of our well-fed youth." A small voice spoke up from the end of the table. Tenten felt a little scared for the boy as she waited for the reaction of her sensei. She wasn't disappointed. "YOSH. Let us feed our youthful bodies so our flames may burn brighter than ever before. Naruto." Of course, as soon as he said the boy's name, Tenten was horrified that another person might be able to do it with her sensei, but was rather shocked at what came next. "No," the small voice said as the blonde left the table, leaving a weeping Gai and a Kakashi whose shoulders were shaking ever so slightly. Tenten was understandably awed at him as she watched him just deny her sensei the most horrifying genjutsu ever, the youthful sunset genjutsu, unbreakable and unbeatable, scarring everyone and everything in the vicinity. It was rumored to be a TNI technique that could overthrow Ibiki in his position of top interrogator if it was ever used on any prisoners. She had to get his teaching if he could lead Guy like that and then deny him the chance of the sunset genjutsu. Naruto-sensei! She almost yelled, trying to get his attention. As he turned around, he found one Tenten Higurashi on her knees with her hands folded together and looked pleading to him. Teach me your ways. Please, Naruto-sensei. I will learn whatever you have to teach me and do whatever you asked me to. She pleaded, trying to have someone teach her to guard her sanity around the Green Sunset Duo. Why? He merely asked. He knew, of course, from seeing a few of their training sessions, but still wanted her to say it and confirm why she wanted him, a genin barely out of the academy, as a teacher instead of someone on par with Hataki-san. Please teach me to defend my mind from the evil sunset, Naruto-sensei. She was still pleading while Guy was sulking even harder now, knowing what Tenten was doing. He merely stared at her a little before walking to the kitchen. Wait for me, Naruto-sensei! She yelled again while ignoring her sulking green sensei. Kakashi now had a very happy smile on his face. The fact that a year with Guy was enough to break someone to the point that they would run after anyone that showed a little normality. It was hilarious to him. If he knew that just being around Naruto was this fun, he would have asked to have a 4-genin team rather than the normal 3 genins. Oh, what a dream that would be! I wouldn't have to do anything, as Naruto would know enough to teach them, so I could read Ika all day long, he thought in ecstasy. While Kakashi was in La La Land with his fantasy of having a strong team while reading Ika, Guy was still in his corner sulking with a rain cloud over him, occasionally muttering unyouthful comrades taking people from him and other unyouthful things. It was to this scene that the rest of the genin and the medics came into, a daydreaming Kakashi and a gloomy Guy. Soon after, breakfast was over and the senseis were back to normal. Guy was being youthful while Kakashi had his nose in his porn. As the genins and medics got up from the table, the senseis motioned for the team to go outside. Once everyone was outside, Narumi, Tenten, Sakura, and Lee were gawking at the giant tent set up next to the house. Their senseis weren't much better. Naruto, how? Who? What? After the babbling was finished, Naruto looked at them and motioned them to come inside. Inside, the space looked even bigger, as on one side stood a rack of weapons that Tenten nearly teleported towards to inspect, while Sasuke took his time meandering over to check the tools out. On the other side were a couple futons meant for someone to take a quick nap upon. In the middle was a large table that had maps of the island they were on, and figures of people and of buildings as well off to the side. The map showed a staggered line in a circular fashion around a group of tent figurines, near the ocean, with a couple more figurines that looked like ships pinned to where the ocean was on the map. Welcome to my humble tent, Naruto said softly, ignoring the tick marks growing on Narumi's, Sasuke's, Niji's, Yukaku's and Kunoyo's faces. Tenten, could you come over here please? We need to stop dilly-dallying for now, we have work to do, he said, and she came over, putting down the shuriken that she was inspecting. Dang, Naruto-san, do you make your own weaponry? She asked, a little awed by what she had just seen. Some of it, he confirmed. Now, how are we going to deal with the camp mate-san, Hataki-san? He asked, giving them the floor to speak. And like that they spent the next few hours planning, while Naruto had shadow clones guard the house and Tazuna, 2 at the house because they were so close, and 20 at the bridge because of its importance. It was now dusk and the genin, medics, and Jounin were finished planning and were in the forest by the bandit camp. Okay, we all know the plan, genin, stay back and take out any stragglers. Me and Guy will do the heavy hitting, while Naruto, Yukaku-san and Kunoyo-san help the prisoners. Naruto, keep them safe. Guy, if you would please. Kakashi spoke through their radios. The plan was simple. Naruto and the medics would strike one side of the camp that the prisoners were on, while Kakashi would strike the other side where the most bandits would be. Guy, meanwhile, would be dealing with anyone that came by the dock to get to the ships, and the genin would support each other to take out any bandit that went toward the forest in order to hide away. Every major direction was supported and blocked off for escape. Not one bandit would come to save Gato when the time came. YOSH, let our flames of youth explode, he yelled, waking everyone in the camp up and partially deafening everyone who forgot to take out their earpieces when Guy was speaking. Naruto, Yukaku and Kunoyo were heading toward the giant pavilion set up for the slaves when Naruto suddenly held his hand out, motioning the others back a few feet, and hushed them. After a moment of waiting, they saw 5 bandits running toward the docks where the yell came from. Motioning them to move forward, after a few seconds had passed, they rushed the pavilion. Slicing a flap in the back of it, the 3 moved inside to the slaves. Inside the cages, the slaves were groggily waking up because of the earlier shout throughout the camp. Immediately they were worried because of the 3 newcomers inside the tent walking closer to them. They were then shocked when the male of the group took out a dagger and neatly sliced through the bars in a square big enough for them to escape. This was their chance. Rushing the three newcomers, the male immediately moved out of their way and let the medics do their jobs, while silently pumping a small amount of chakra into the air, doing the opposite of killing intent, letting a calming effect wash over the now freed slaves. Over a few minutes, the medics calmed the slaves while healing their smaller injuries, letting them know the medics were on their side. They were still cautious around Naruto because of his natural emotionless face, but they somehow knew he wouldn't hurt them. After most of the slaves could walk, the medics led them to where they opened a flap in the back. Naruto made a quick clone to guard the rear when disaster struck. "Hey! The slaves are getting free!" a random thug yelled from the front of the tent when he was sent to check on them. He tried to grab a slave but was cut off as a kid ran forward and clocked him in the jaw, knocking him out cold. "Go!" he said in a slightly raised voice as he moved back to the rear and had three clones take the sides and the front of the group as the medics were leading them away from the camp to the forest near where they had set up a larger pavilion with futons for them to rest at to sleep over their stressful situation. "Move!" He hurried them through the flap of the tent after checking that no one was nearby. After most everyone was through, Naruto looked back in the cages for anyone that they missed and saw a small child no older than 6 still in the farthest cage, huddled up trying to keep everything away. Moving towards the child, he noticed it was a long-haired girl with rags for clothes. Pumping a larger amount of calming chakra around him, he shook her shoulder. "Hey, time to wake up. We need to leave," he said in a far kinder tone than he had used in a long time. Groaning a little, the girl turned around and cringed slightly at the male face before calming down at the peaceful feeling around her. It didn't take long before her shell of fear cracked, and she lunged at the stranger and bawled her eyes out in sorrow at what had happened to her and the other nice ladies while they were prisoner. Naruto picked the little girl up, noticing how light she was, and held her, sharing warmth and calming feelings spreading through his chakra in the air. He silently made a shadow clone and switched with it so the clone could carry the child to the pavilion to be with the others. She was still bawling her eyes out. Moving toward the flap in the tent, he and the clone carrying the child went outside and saw the group still there waiting for their guard. 5 bandits were unconscious on the ground around the group. Nodding to his clones, Naruto, his clones, the medics, and the child still gripping the blonde's clone's jacket as if it was a lifeline, and the slaves all moved forward away from the camp. It wasn't long, however, before more bandits found them and tried to take back the slaves. Keyword tried. Naruto had no mercy for the slavers and beat them down mercilessly so they couldn't amass as a group and attack the rescue party. They will not capture these people again. Naruto swore silently, intending it to be unheard. Too bad it was heard by a few of the children, and the child still holding Hid Clone's jacket. As for the rest of the Konoha ninjas, Guy was keeping them away from the docks with his fast and furious taijutsu, showing his strength. Kakashi was attacking the opposite side of Naruto's group with a lot of what he knew, certainly not everything. That would just be silly to use such monstrous moves on mere bandits. And the genin were standing firm by the forest, holding off the occasional bandit group that tried to hide in the woods. Tenten and Narumi teamed up, with Narumi in front and Tenten in back, forming a good team with Tenten's accuracy in throwing things and Narumi's stamina in taijutsu. It was a good team. Sakura and Lee had teamed up as well, Sakura depending on Lee a little more than she would have liked, but it was what they had to do to make sure she came out alive, with Lee ripping through bandits with his screams of youth and taijutsu, and Sakura staying more towards the back with ranged attacks, helping where she could. That left Sasuke and Niji in the same group as they tore through the bandits with taijutsu, ninjutsu and genjutsu, most of the illusions and fire ninjutsu provided by the Uchiha. Niji was tearing through the bandits with the Hyuga's gentle fist technique, either killing or incapacitating most of the enemy with only a few jabs before he moved on. They were the scariest of the duos. It went on like that for a few hours before everything calmed down. By the time everything was said and done, everyone had their first kill. Sakura had thrown up multiple times, but was still trying to help and improve herself. She had thought about a lot the night before after Naruto had stopped her fist. It was enough to break her fangirlish tendencies most of the way, at least. Sasuke had taken it like a champ and had only broken down after the attack finished. Narumi had held it in with Kyuubi's help and reassurance that she wasn't a monster from killing them. Her new friend Tenten had comforted her as well afterwards. Guy's team had already had their first kills and was better than them, but still had to take a few minutes alone. Naruto had it worse though, as he had slaughtered the bandits heading towards the rescue group as they quickly moved through the edge of the camp away from the bandits chasing them. Naruto had left clones with them as guards and stayed behind to keep the bandits away from the group. He had no mercy for slavers. No person should be forced into service to another. It was wrong in his mind, so he took out their vengeance for them. Legs, arms, and other body parts were littered behind the party as they moved farther away. He was throwing up and dry heaving after that for he didn't know how long. It was all he could do to push the memories back for now until everything had washed over and then deal with it properly. Shakily he got up and started moving towards where he, his clones and the medics had set up the pavilion. The real Naruto had shown up at the pavilion only moments after they themselves had reached it and piled onto the futons as they were checked. The ex-slaves had warmed up to him considerably since the rescue had begun and had let him do checkups on some of them as well, some of the children especially who had heard his promise in guarding them from the bad men. It was the children who looked up at him with awe that he found both amusing and regretful at what had happened earlier. I couldn't help it. I have to heal these people then deal with it later. They need me strong right now. I can grieve for the loss of life later. Until then I just need a smile and to heal them for now. He thought as he kept healing those that came to him. It was both the children and some of the women who wanted to thank him for guarding them during their escape. He noticed that Tenga was with a different healer staying away from him. He was fine with it though he had expected that if not outright attacks from some of the women. In the middle of the tent were the children staying on their futons, sometimes cuddled up with some of the other children or adults. The older ones had stayed on the outer more edge of the ring of futons. In the end more than half the futons were empty because of people staying together on a single futon or had moved their futon next to someone else's to huddle up together in security. After everyone had been treated, Naruto went to the middle of the ring of futons, sat down on a pillow and started pumping out calming chakra again like he had done with the distraught child earlier. She had been one of the first ones helped and had been out like a light once she had hit the pillow. The day of emotional stress was too much. Waking up in captivity again and watching as the older women got dragged away for who knows how long, and then brought back whimpering in an even more disheveled state, and then saved during the night, and then running away, it was too much for the small girl. Naruto soon found himself to be the occupant of the medic's attention as they finished treating their patients. They noticed the calming effect of the chakra in the air and had wondered where it had come from. Knowing it came from him of all people was odd. When they had reached Tazuna's house at first glance they had mistaken Naruto for a cold-blooded killer. It was hard not to with his face being the way it was. No emotion, no nothing that they could see or sense from him. It was odd seeing that the technique they wanted to learn, what he was doing right now, pumping calming chakra through the air. It was odd to them, yet they could easily see the results. The patients closer to him were starting to loosen up on their sheets or bedmates, and the tension on their faces loosened as well, showing a more relaxed state. It was surprising, however, when one child woke up groggily and started to look around for something. Yukaku started moving toward her but stopped when she stopped looking around when she saw Naruto sitting in the middle. Her bedmate had woken as well as some of the other children were looking around for something. It was worrisome for Yukaku. She knew they had to be exhausted from the trials of staying at the camp and then running away when they had come, and then finally be allowed rest. It was a miracle they slept at all instead of wailing in grief and sorrow at what they went through. Now seeing them awake was a shock to the woman, as she could only stare as the first child that she saw that had woken up started moving towards the center of the group, towards Naruto. He didn't move at all, still sitting there radiating calming chakra as he sat there with a soft smile on his hold on. When did he start smiling? They hadn't seen him smile once the entire time while they were in Wave, and now after just running from a bandit camp he was smiling? She shook her head, getting rid of the shock that was Naruto smiling. Naruto, however, was still sitting awake and had moved a couple futons around him just in case this had played out like he thought it would. Why wouldn't children who had trying days move closer to someone who radiated warmth and a calming presence? Though he was surprised when the girl he saved climbed on his lap and then fell asleep. He couldn't help but chuckle inwardly. Still smiling softly, he saw another few children scoot closer to him until it looked like a fort of lumpy blankets surrounded him. He couldn't help himself when he whispered out, "I will keep you all safe, and the bad men won't touch you anymore." Kinuyo walked up to Yukaku and smiled a little. Who knew someone like him could be so good with kids? She said softly as to not wake the ones they were next to. Yukaku nodded before she led Kinuyo to the opening to the tent and went outside, where they found Kakashi, his team, Guy and his team as well, standing there muddy, bloody, and with green faces with all that had went on that day. Not to say Guy and Kakashi were green, they held themselves better than the new Genins and barely a year out of the academy children. Kakashi, do you have any jutsu that could clean you up a bit before going inside? I'm afraid of what might happen if the patients should see you like that, Yukaku said, worried about having some of the females relapse into shock or try and attack them. As their group was led away from the tent for washing back in the tent, Naruto could be seen smiling softly, still pumping chakra through the air, giving all the girls, boys and women pleasant dreams while they were asleep. Above the sleeping children and freed prisoners were 3 sets of ghostly eyes watching the blonde with intensity, all the while communicating telepathically with each other. Is he the one? The blue eyes asked. Indeed, yes, he is. I watched him throughout the day. He was so much fun to watch. And he's good with kids. He, the green eyes giggled out. Enough, you know we can't do anything without him summoning us first. Blue eyes again. Oh, would you two get a grip already? We only came to observe him and deem if he is worthy or not. The yellow eyes communicated now. HMFF. Now it was both the green and blue eyes that communicated while turning away from each other to stare back at the not-so-asleep blonde. Naruto wasn't sure what time it was now, but he needed these kids to get off of him. He wasn't a jungle gym, darn it. Throughout the night the kids had draped themselves all over him and had slept on him. Only his head wasn't covered in blankets from all the kids over and around him. Of course there were other reasons he wanted them off for now, because he was running on fumes for chakra. He had been channeling chakra throughout the night, with the amount dwindling down to almost an insignificant effect on the girls and boys on and around him, which only made them scoot closer to him for his warmth and comforting presence. Fortunately someone above listened to his pleas and Yukaku entered the room, very amused at the blonde's position. He hadn't moved throughout the night, so understandably he was a little sore. Locking eyes with her, he mouthed help. And help she did. Walking up to the pile of blankets and children, she chuckled a moment before she started waking them for the day. And wake they did. At first it was only the farthest kids that wanted anything to do with waking up and then falling back to sleep near their person made of comfort and blankets. But they did get up only to walk back to the other beds and immediately plop back down, going back to sleep. Naruto only chuckled a little at their attitude towards waking up. It had been a trying day for all of them, him included. Now that they were waking up, he could finally stop using the fragments of whatever chakra he had left, and maybe get a little shut-eye to replenish what he lost during the night. Though it was understandable that when the first child who had fallen asleep on his legs woke up, she immediately looked up at Naruto in wonder. The past few days for her had been terrible and sleep-riddled with nightmares. So it was a little incredible that being near this guy she didn't get nightmares at all, just pure deep sleep. It was wonderful to her. It was a few moments before she got up, though a little nervous about leaving her savior. But she got up nonetheless and approached the other adult women who were awake on the further side of the tent to get ready for whatever the day was going to bring. Naruto, now that he was free of blankets and sleepy children, calmly stood up, stretched to get the feeling back in his limbs from sitting like that all night, and started to walk out of the tent before a couple women came up to him. "Ninja-san?" one asked. They were obviously nervous for some reason and had just gotten up from the state of how they behaved. "We just want to say thank you for getting us out of there," she said as they both bowed to him. Now Naruto has had very few people appreciate what he has done. Most of the time it was appreciation for doing a job, something he takes with a grain of salt. However, the appreciation of women who had just been defiled and mustered up the courage to thank a male for the rescue was both extremely impressive and odd to him. He had no idea how to react to the females bowing to him. "It's fine, it was my job anyway," he stated a little sheepishly. This was the first time anyone thanked him for doing something sincerely, being truly grateful to him for it. He had no idea how to take sincerity. As he left the tent, he quickly remembered he had extremely low chakra and had killed the day before. He barely made it to the bushes before heaving everything out of his stomach, and then a little more, dry heaving afterward as all the memories came back. After a few minutes had passed, he stopped heaving only to pass out from sheer exhaustion. He barely heard his name shouted frantically before everything went black. "Are you aware, child?" a voice sounded out. Naruto woke in darkness. Nothing was in sight, and he was laying on nothing. He could see himself, but that was it. "Where am I?" he asked the darkness. "We are inside your mind," it replied. Not a few seconds later, Naruto saw the darkness open in front of him. He was in a library with many tall bookcases surrounding him and a good-sized table that could easily fit 8 people, 2 on each side with chairs on every side. "Who is speaking?" he asked again, now that he was in a more comfortable environment. "Someone old enough to be your grandfather's grandfather." Naruto still couldn't tell where the voice was coming from, so asked another question. "Where are you?" "Now why would I tell you that?" it asked with mirth in the voice. With a twitching eyebrow he responded. "So I know that you're actually real and not something I should see a psychiatrist for. Also, why am I here?" "Ha ha ha ha, I like your style, kid, give me a minute," it said. Soon out from between the bookcases a man walked in. He was easily 6 feet tall with brown hair and onyx eyes. He was wearing dark brown pants with patches of green on it. His shirt was a forest green with a mountain on the front of it. On his back was the largest sword he had ever seen in his life. The handle a foot above the man's head was decorated with a large brown gem on the bottom of the handle with brown cloth wrapping the hilt. The blade of it was as wide as Zabuza's cleaver, only thinner, and looked slightly serrated on the edge. "My name is Ryodaichi. You are here because you were chosen by 3 troublesome elementals to be their summoner. I was to be your tester. But with your little act of allowing the kids on you to sleep peacefully, some of the elders were damn impressed with your spirit and kindness to those children. Especially after such a trying day, I'm sure. So it is to my pleasure to accept you as an elemental summoner," the giant said before holding his hand out for Naruto to take. "Why did they choose me?" he asked, not entirely sure to take the hand. "They choose you for their own reasons, be they noble, perverted, I don't know. All I know is that one day those three showed up on my doorstep and asked for permission to choose their summoner," he said, not dropping his hand. "Then I'll just have to ask them for myself when I meet them, won't I?" he said, smirking a little before clapping hands with the man. Immediately he felt a slight burning on his back. "What the?" he said, cringing at the feeling a little. "Don't worry about that. It's just a contract between the elemental and human. Kind of like a summoning contract, only instead of on a scroll it's on your body so that others can't use it unless they somehow control you to do so," he said, assuring the boy. After a few moments of the giant grasping his hand, Naruto felt the burning stop. Now beneath his shirt, Naruto had 3 bright green, yellow and blue kanji on his back for wind, lightning and water respectively. "Before you go, I have a few questions?" he asked the man, who smirked at his bluntness. "Shoot." "Are the elemental summons loyal to the village they come from, the family tree, or each individual person?" "We elementals are loyal to the summoner only. However, we have our own sentience. We will not blindly follow someone through his or her life. If you betray us, we will hunt you," he commented darkly, sending a small shiver through Naruto's spine. "Not to worry. I have no intention of betraying anyone that would allow me to summon them. That would be asking for near damnation," he responded. "Good. I watched them grow up a little. Though I should warn you before I go, you might want to get a mask for when you meet them," he said, snickering a little what he knew would happen. "Why?" Naruto asked cautiously. "Sorry, I'm not going to say, just know that you should. The marks will be ready for you to summon them in a few days, so until then be careful. Good luck, and I hope we don't meet anytime soon," he said as he walked back into the bookcases and vanished before Naruto could question him on why. Standing still for a minute, Naruto then sat down at the table and started processing everything that had gone on during that encounter. Now Naruto could sense a little bit. Nothing like the professionals, but he could find someone if he had to. He had felt the pure power rolling off the man in spades. But now that he was alone inside his mind, one very important question decided to rear its face. "How do I get out?" he asked nobody. Naruto was slightly annoyed and proud to hear the large echo showing how vast the library was. "Naruto and I," Narumi said from his bedside. Not even 5 seconds after Naruto had collapsed from both mental and chakra exhaustion, Narumi had caught him and frantically carried him back inside the tent where the healers were. He had been asleep for nearly the whole day so far, and Narumi had only left when it was her turn to guard the family in bridge. Tenten had brought her breakfast, lunch, and had stayed with her for company to keep her occupied. Of course the children stayed as well, feeling very worried that the person who was so kind was now in danger in their minds. The medics had assured Narumi it was just exhaustion, but she still hadn't left other than for her shifts. The children by his bedside had left a few times, but only for lunch and a few games that were presented by the teams for the kids. The mothers in the older group let their kids be near their savior, even if it was a male. The only person who had been by his side as much as Narumi was the girl that Naruto had found left back in the cages. She was a little hysterical at first, but calmed down after the ladies in white told her he just needed some rest. Mostly she just sat in a different futon with her knees up and her eyes poking over them to stare at Naruto, as if watching him, waiting for him to wake up or need something. Narumi and the girl had a few conversations through the day, mostly about Naruto, but they occasionally strayed. Narumi learned her name was Nagako Yuki. Narumi, while she was watching over her brother, had noticed a few of the glances from the older women in the tent at the boy and honestly wondered what they were for. They seemed more curious about something than anything else. One woman in particular. She stood at a proud 5 feet 5 inches with dirty black hair and a stance that oozed military training from somewhere. She had kept staring at Naruto with curiosity and wariness, as if she was fighting the urges to know him better or keep away from him. She kept bouncing her attention from the other women who were walking around the tent to Naruto, who just lay there motionless aside from his breathing. The day passed and Narumi went back to Tezuna's house to sleep. Nagako, who had been sitting there, stayed there watching him. Now instead of watching him sleep, she pulled a couple blankets over him with the ladies in white helping and then curled up next to him as if to keep warm next to him. Not long after that, a few other children had the same idea. It totaled up to 5 kids who stayed next to him that night. All girls, funnily enough. One girl with dirty blonde hair slept to his right with her blanket mostly on him to try and keep him warm like he had the night before. The second girl had dark blue hair that slept on his right with her wrapped around his arm. Third was a girl with light brown hair that slept on top of his first blanket with another one on top of her, sandwiching her between blankets on top of him. The fourth girl had a darker shade of brown hair that curled up next to his head with her blanket on her, not wanting to keep his head under a blanket as that could disrupt his breathing. Any and every child who has put their head under a blanket knows it gets stuffy under a blanket after a while. And lastly was Nagako, who now had cleaner black hair, had curled up next to his legs with her back touching his calf. The medics just cooed at the sight before dealing with everyone else. Unknown to Naruto were the three ghostly eyes at the top of the tent now staring down at him in unhidden joy and ecstasy. Naruto woke up very warm. Trying to move, he then noticed a few weights on his arms and another weight on his chest with something pressing on his leg. Opening his eyes, he looked down to see 4 girls near him with their blankets on top of him. Softening his eyes, he then felt breathing on his ear. Confused slightly, he turned his head and noticed another girl right next to his head wrapped in a blanket. All of them were sleeping. He was trapped. Crap. How did I end up in this? He thought as he laid his head back down. Well, might as well make the most of it. Seeing no light come from the tent flap, it must be nighttime. Geez, wonder how long I was out for? Okay, gauging my chakra, I would guess it to be about a quarter filled. Crap. Out for probably an entire day and only have a quarter rejuvenated. How? He thought, remembering the times that he could count on one hand how many times he had been down for more than a day because of either too much training or sickness. Okay, might as well go back to sleep as I need it. After laying his head down again, he fell back to sleep, not noticing the tiny trickle of his chakra leaking from his back into the new marks on it that had started glowing because of it. The next morning, the children woke. Is he awake yet? The child on his chest asked. Not the least concerned that she was sleeping on him. More focused on his well-being. No, not yet. Hopefully he will wake up soon, the girl by his head said. Muh. She made an angry sound that they all reciprocated that did not go unnoticed by the medics. Walking over to them, Yukako noticed the girls pretty much sleeping on him, and him still sleeping. She had to stop herself from screeching out kawaii. Though her companion made little effort to stop herself as she did, but kept it quiet, as she looked starry-eyed at the scene. Nobody could just watch 5 small girls taking care of their savior with such childish determination and not find it cute. Naruto was now under all 5 of their blankets and 3 pillows, as 2 of them were under his head and under his feet, propping his legs up a bit. So what do we do until Nichan wakes up? The one on his right asked. So what is everyone's name? The one on the left asked. They all blinked before sheepishly chuckling. Yuma Shima, the one that was on his chest, said. Miliko Tansho, his left side. Mutazumi Ebina, his right side. Kyoko Soda, the one by his head, said. Hey, that rhymed, laughing face. Nagaka Yuki said from by his legs. After introducing themselves to each other, the children then stayed a bit waiting for him to wake up. Only to be disappointed that he didn't. So they left him for a while to get breakfast from the ladies in white. A few hours later, Narumi showed up and sat back down with the kids waiting for her Oni-chan to wake up. Tenten showed up not a half hour later and kept her company with the kids that constantly questioned her about Naruto. What he was like, stories about their adventures as ninja and other things like that. Naruto stayed asleep the entire day as the kids, Tenten and Narumi, watched him. After an hour of staying there, Tenten and Narumi left, as they had to guard Tazuna and his family. At the end of the day, the kids went up to cuddle with their savior again, but were stopped by the ladies in white for now, as they should leave him alone for a while. Of course, the children had obeyed at first, but as soon as they left the tent for even a minute, they all rushed over and cuddled into Naruto to keep him warm again. Naruto sat inside his mind, reading over the books and scroll he found on interesting things. It was rather interesting to read his own thought process. Around him were 3 whiteboards filled with writing and diagrams of different things as he went through the scrolls and textbooks. But of course, only so much could be accomplished in the mind alone, so he had to wake up soon. It was funny to him. He had only been here once and had gotten the hang of getting here rather quickly, as it took only a few tries while under the children to get here. What also surprised him was the organization method in the bookcases. It seemed it went in a chronological order, starting from the door to his consciousness body, and went on a thin path to the table. Then to the right of the table was all the ninja knowledge, while everything else was on the left. Starting from the door to the table was the beginning of when he started researching chakra and jutsu theories. Truth be told, he had forgotten a number of them and had went through a few of the books for fun just to refamiliarize him with the content. He had knowledge of a lot of every chakra type and style, be they elemental ninjutsu, sealing, taijutsu forms, genjutsu, medical knowledge, and practically everything in between. He had gone through 20 books and 40 scrolls in total. Getting up, he stretched from being seated so much. Even if he was still in his mind, it was odd to him. Looking back at the last board he occupied with designs, he smiled. It was nearly finished. For barely a moment, Naruto had a hungry grin on his face as he looked at the seal formula on the board. It had taken a lot to go through everything to find the right way to mix the matrices right, but he had done it. He just needed something to test it on. Wiping the grin off of his face, Naruto retook his neutral face with a hint of a smile as he turned back to the door to his conscious. It just occurred to him how much space was in his mind as his feet took him to the door to being conscious. Opening the door, he jumped into the blackness that was the space between unconsciousness and consciousness. "Ake yet?" something from his right asked. He felt the familiar weights of the children from when he last woke up. "Well, I'm awake, who are you asking for?" he asked, opening his eyes. Immediately he was bombarded with 5 voices yelling out Anai-chan. Chuckling a little, he felt the 5 weights crash onto his blankets, and then him. It was odd to him to have 5 people, children even, who not days prior were held captive by bandits, and what they had seen because of it. Naruto couldn't understand their strength. To overcome that and to be so happy that he was back awake, even if he did save them from the camp, he couldn't truly understand their happiness. Of course, his queries were to be furthered to another day. "Naruto-san, the bridge is being attacked," one medic said frantically after noticing he was awake. That woke him up from the last of his grogginess. Grumbling at the timing, he sat up and looked around for his clothes. Fortunately, he found them not far from his bedside. Ducking under a blanket to change, he quickly took stock of his chakra. Crap. Still only half? What the hell is going on? He thought worriedly. It's not every day an Uzumaki is held down because of chakra exhaustion, even less for more than one day. Donning his gear, Naruto took out a scroll and made a weak shadow clone, giving it mental orders on what to do, and nodded and wrote on a scroll the original had given it. It had a lot to do before it was finished. After giving the scroll to his clone, Naruto had raced out of the tent, sending the children a wave and goodbye. "So where's the antisocial blondie?" Zabuza asked as he traded blows against Kakashi. Guy's team was protecting the medics. Now that they had recovered from the bandit attack, they had taken turns guarding the family, the bridge, and the medic tent. Now it was Kakashi, Narumi, and Sakura guarding the bridge, Narumi dueling with the fake hunter Nin, and Kakashi against Zabuza with Sakura guarding Tazuna. Narumi barely had time to send a clone to the medic tent where Guy's team was, so it was going to be close. It was Narumi against an ice user and Kakashi versus a member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. Not good odds in her eyes. Zabuza had come with the mist, knocking all the workers out as he waited for his target. Of course, if her Nai-chan had been awake, this would have been much easier in her opinion. No mist, easy to see everything, and a strong ninja for backup. Very helpful in her humble opinion. Not to mention that he would probably know the best way to fight an opponent with a Kekkei Genkai. "Yikes," she said in alarm as she weaved her way around a few Saban. Moving slowly forward, Narumi used her handy kunai to deflect the nasty Saban. Of course, when a solution is found, a new problem must be faced. "Water style, 1,000 flying water needs of death," her opponent said, stomping the water on the ground. As the water flew up from the mist and the ground, it converged and shot at Narumi. Gathering chakra in her legs, Narumi jumped over the technique and grabbed another kunai to let fly at the Hunter Nin. Said Hunter Nin blocked it with Sanban laced between his fingers and quickly bringing up another Sanban laced hand to block the twin kunai wielded by Narumi. Separating from each other, the two took a moment to gauge each other before the Hunter Nin spoke. "You've done well to fight me so far. However, I apologize, as I must finish this quick for Zabuza-sama. Ice style, demonic ice mirrors," she said, flying through a few seals that Narumi couldn't track because of the sheer speed. Much to Narumi's shock, ice rose around her. Raising her guard even higher, she could feel she was in trouble. Her shock rose as she soon saw reflections of the Nin in every mirror surrounding her. "I'm sorry it's come to this, but I will make it quick as my speed in these mirrors are supreme. Allow me to demonstrate," the ninja said as soon Sanban were flying at her from every direction. Narumi couldn't keep track of everything and was soon riddled with needles. "QB. I'm going to need help with this one," she thought to the demon that nodded its giant head, sending a small amount of its chakra to her, bursting the Sanban out of her and giving her a much-needed boost. Speaking out loud now, she spoke now in a more gravely tone than before. "You would do well to study your opponent more if you think a few needles can kill me," she said before charging a mirror and smashing through, sending the ninja into shock before realizing that he was now flying backwards through the air because of the force of the punch and cracking his mask. Narumi charged the ninja and reared her fist back, only to stop as she recognized the face as the one she saw in the forest not a few days before, after she had put Inari in his place after he tried to use her brother as an example of how comfy their life must be. Sakura and Sasuke were shocked into silence because of the light she shed on her brother. "Why Haku?" The sheer emotion in her voice made Haku cringe lightly on the inside. "Because I am his tool, Narumi-san. I am now broken as I failed my task to bring victory to Zabuza-sama. Please bring an end to this broken tool's life," Haku said, smiling lightly as if he wasn't talking about committing suicide because of his failure. Feeling a new presence on the bridge, Narumi looked at Haku and kept him busy by telling his story while focused on Haku and the new presence's movements. Naruto stood at the start of the bridge watching the fights. The mist had cleared enough that he could see Zabuza trapped and Kakashi racing toward his opponent with lightning cupped in his hand. Stretching his senses, Naruto could faintly feel the new presences at the back of the bridge. Narrowing his eyes, he decided he needed a few more seconds before it was time to show himself and Gato at the end of the bridge. Of course, he could just go around everyone and slam the back of the large group. Naruto barely had time to register the loss of Zabuza's presence because of the lightning exploding in his chest before he raised his hands into a single seal and pushed his hands forward, amassing his control over the technique further before launching it. He needed to be careful if he wanted to keep a healthy amount of chakra for fighting the mob at the end of the bridge. Just as Kakashi was sliding his out of Zabuza's corpse, he noticed a fairly strong wind blowing from the start of the bridge. A little irked at the timing, he smiled as he looked at his teacher's son. Wind style, great breakthrough. Kakashi could barely hear it before strong winds appeared and blew the mist away, showing his other cute genins. And the mob at the end of the bridge with a short midget in the lead. Well. Who would have thought you were nothing but a baby demon? Couldn't even take out an old drunk. Better luck next life, ha ha ha. Now would you shinobi be so kind as to move? I think with you being so tired already, a few hundred men would be too much for you. So why don't you just give up and hand him over? The midget said. Before Kakashi or Narumi could speak, Naruto made himself known. Not very well considering him being barely taller than the midget that was Gato, but still known. Wind style, cutting gale. Just as he said that, a mean breeze went through the bandits, who began losing their smirks as the wind started cutting through their clothes, skin, and leaving scratch marks on their weapons. Dropping his hands, Naruto charged the now panicking bandits. Taking out dual kunai, he ran at them and began tearing them apart, heedless of Narumi's screams for him to stay back. Going through the bandits, Naruto couldn't help but feel his queasiness coming back, but pushed past it as he kept blocking a few swords and other various weaponry. Of course, all strength comes to an end somewhere. Sometime in the crowd, Naruto got tired more quickly than he usually did, and it concerned him. Not to mention that the bandits were getting bolder. More attacks were focused on him, and to his and Narumi's horror, a few got through, stabbing him in the back. They weren't terrible wounds, but with his sudden strength loss, everything counted. Rushing forward, he took out 5 more while wounding a dozen extra and made it to Gato. Please don't kill me, I'll give you whatever you want, women, money, power? Anything. Gato didn't even hear the response, it was so low. Did you give the slaves or villagers any mercy, I wonder? Just as he finished saying that, Naruto made it to the midget and sliced his head off. Not too far away, Narumi and the newly found Haku were now tearing through the bandits with Kakashi by their side as they tried to get to Naruto. Naruto felt his strength leaving him as blood leaked from his back. He felt so weak. He needed water. Water was just out of his reach as he now crawled to the edge of the bridge. Just as he made it, he heard a name being called behind him. Naruto! Who was that? Was that him? He didn't know. All he knew was that the water he desperately wanted was beneath him. Barely moving, he tipped himself over. Now falling toward the water, he barely noticed a pair of ghostly blue eyes open in the water and wink at him before he splashed into the water. Narumi's mind was numb. Her brother was gone. Their first real mission together, and he's gone. Forever separated from the world. Forever separated from his family. Forever separated from her. Tears that made it were quickly evaporated as a red cloak of power surrounded her. Her sorrow made itself known in the air as she began to more savagely tear her way through the bandits, coming closer to the edge of the bridge. Kakashi was a mess as well as he began to revert to what he had done at the Kanabi Bridge. Tearing his way through the bandits with more force, limbs separating from their bodies seconds after he passed them, blood flying everywhere. His silent little brother figure was gone. He was going to kill them. Murder. Destroy them. No bandit was safe. It didn't even take a minute for the remaining bandits to fall. All of it happening in front of the villagers that had banded together behind Inari. Narumi was still crying hours later as Tenten, letting her tears, held her flow freely. They were back in the medic tent to check on any wounds that had happened on the bridge. Some of the children were crying as well from overhearing the conversations of the adults. It was a good thing that the tent was now so close to Tazuna's house. Narumi didn't think she could make it that far. Guy's team and Kakashi were out searching for the body. They had left Tenten to help console Narumi, who had bonded a little bit with the weapons mistress. Hours later, Guy's team came back. Silent as a ghost, Narumi didn't hear them move. She only saw Guy shake his head. Eyes widening, she turned to Kakashi in hope it was a lie. Seeing him shake his head, her tears renewed as she cried. Her voice was gone now, it was just silent tears. It would take hours more for her tears to end. Naruto woke to darkness. Attempting to move, he found that to not be a smart move as his body madly protested. You really shouldn't be moving, you know. You were almost dead a few days ago. A motherly tone said from the shadows further ahead. Where am I? Naruto said as he attempted to get his bearings. He tried clearing his head, but it was harder than he remembered. As he kept trying, he remembered everything that had happened. You are in an elemental's cave. Mine, to be exact. The distinctly female voice said. Then thank you for letting me rest here. And may I ask who my host is? He said in a polite voice. He could still sense the woman's presence. It was well huge, to put it lightly. It was like an ocean suddenly decided to become a person. It was not wise to anger a person who had a lot more power than him. Just like Ryodaichi. Gladly. You're such a polite boy. My name is Ryo-Kai. The voice said as a woman stepped out of the back of the cave into the small light provided by torches that lit up with blue flames around the cave. She was around 5 feet 7 inches with a dark blue kimono on with lighter blue wave patterns. She had a katana strapped to her hip through her obi. She had a round face with a motherly smile on her face as she looked at Naruto. Her sea blue eyes were sparkling with kindness in her gaze. Naruto Uzumaki. It's a pleasure to meet such a powerful elemental, he said from his bed. Sorry, I can't really bow at the moment, he added. He didn't know what would get on the woman's bad side, so being a very polite person was a smart thing at the moment. Tinkling laughs was his response, as he looked at the woman elemental in slight confusion. No problem. Have you summoned your elementals yet? She asked after her giggles left. No, I haven't yet. Not to mention my chakra is returning very slowly at the moment. I'm not sure I would be able to anyways. Naruto said, his worry returning on why his chakra was coming back so slowly. Daichi didn't tell you why? She questioned. Seeing a shake of the head, a small tick mark appeared on her face. Of course, leave it to the summoner to figure it out. Not to mention whatever else he left out. Okay, what all did Daichi tell you about elemental summons? She said in a more businesslike tone. Not much, to be honest, he said, replaying everything within Kai. Her slight tick mark grew, and now she had 4 tick marks. A strained smile grew her face as her fist was clenched, shaking slightly near her chest. As she calmed down some, she began explaining about the elementals. Okay, no, listen, because I'm not going to repeat myself. He's left it to me too often to explain elementals. Elemental summons are born few and far between. I believe the last elemental summoner where you were born was known as the Shodai Hokage. She said